a 3% increase here. Sometimes it ends up being slightly higher or lower, depending on how the math works out. We use whole dollars here. Out of state, generally falling also in that same 3% range, and same on the graduate side. And you're going to see this reflected a little bit later, a few slides when I show you the total cost of attendance. The last couple of years, maybe at the chair's request, we started including special and differential tuition rates in our presentation, just to give you the full picture. So again, these tend to be higher cost programs where supplies, you see nursing in here and engineering. So they're ones where the goal is to try to break even, and so there are additional charges in those. And over the last couple of years, we've broken those out and tried to provide those to you here, all in one place for you to see them. Mandatory fees is another part of the motion that we'll ask you to approve as well. It's a part of the student charges. So you'll see those here reflected in whole dollars. They're generally falling again somewhere in that 3%, 3 to 4% range. And there are a couple of exceptions to that, I think, that we talked about during the March budget presentations. UMA talked about their academic support fee. So you see the unified fee going away and that popping up. Most of the other ones fall in that kind of general consistent 3 to 4% range. FY26 recommended room and board rates. The rates that you see here, as you see on the note, reflect the option that the most number of students choose. There are a lot of options that students can choose from. That means there's lots of rates, singles and doubles and all of those kind of pieces. So this is a reflection of the average, if you will. Again, you'll see the rates here that fall somewhere between 4 and 5%, like 6 in some cases. This is the student charges, the rolled up annual comprehensive student charges. So this would include the 3 last slides that I showed: tuition, mandatory fees, room and board. And again, as I kind of previewed, they tend to fall in the 3.5% to 4% range across the board. We've been showing this chart for probably 7 or 8 years now. This is looking back over the last 5 years and how does tuition look relative to inflation. And you can see largely across the country that that tuition is not keeping pace with inflation. But what I want to highlight about this chart, and there are old YouTube videos of me where I'm much heavier saying this, but we did this chart 10 years ago, and we were in a negative when it wasn't cool. We were the only institution down there. And so what has happened over the years is, this same kind of pressure that we identified early, that we needed to tamp down what were unsustainable tuition increases back in the early 2000s. Most of the country is just catching up to. And so, again, you see a little steeper declines here, but we have consistently been in the red on this chart going back for the better part of a decade. We also like to track UMS tuition as a percentage of per capita income. And I think a couple of years ago, someone asked about household income, so we added that to the chart. We thought that was a good data source as well. Just constantly checking on, it's not all about what the tuition rate is. It's what Maine people can afford as well. And so you always want to have that check and make sure that, we're still providing a high quality yet affordable product. And I think this chart would show that, and then some. Down to my last half dozen slides here. So funded depreciation in this chart, I think it's a good-ish story. Total investment up by about 10%, so a $3.2 million increase. Again, this is a really positive story. You can go back and if you go back to some of my presentations, 5 years ago, and you see this chart, it'll look about the same, but what I changed is the scale. And the scale used to go up to maybe 10 million. and now it goes up to 60 million. So total investment is up. The challenging part is that depreciation expenses are up. They're up because we're making investments in our facilities, that we're bringing new facilities online, and that means you need to invest more. So depreciation expenses are up 5 million. Our total investments are only up 3. So we're actually losing a little bit of ground. You see, we're down about 1%, funded at 65%. But again, I can remember when that number was below 50%. It's progress depending on how long you've been around. This shows you the specific capital investments that are in this budget by campus and by category. And so you'll see this over the course of the next 3 slides, just in a little bit more detail about where those investments are going this year relative to last year. As a reminder, the campuses come to you as part of your regular FFT agenda. Actually, USM was supposed to be on this agenda, but we kicked them off because we ran out of time. But the campuses come to you. We have 1 to 2 campuses on each of the agendas where they come forward and give you the actual details. So USM will come forward and talk to you about not only this plan, but the full FY26 capital plan. And we schedule that out, stagger that out through the course of the fiscal year. But details here. So we skip down to my last couple. These are the rolled up versions of the total E&G auxiliary and combined budgets. So these are a reflection of the individual budgets and the system budgets stacked up on top of one another. So I'm not going to spend a ton of time going over these individual numbers on the right, because they're driven by a unique circumstance that happens on 1 or 2 campuses. But what I'll note overall about this budget, which is not a great trend, is the pie chart right here. We've seen a consistent evolution of this chart with more and more of the right side of this chart, the net tuition and fee revenue, the student share of it, getting to be a bigger and bigger piece of the pie. It was 45-45 last year, and 44-46 this year, despite what is at least currently projected to be a 4% increase in state appropriation. Still not quite keeping up with the student side of that. So down 1% last year. The comp and non-comp side of the budget, so we are about 71% compensation overall. That is down slightly on the long term. We've been as high as 73 over the last several years, and so we're starting to see that come down just a little bit. On the auxiliary side, really the auxiliary side looks remarkably like it did last year. Sales and services versus dining residence revenue, exactly 86-14. Compensation is up 1% from last year, up from 17%. And then the overall budget, again, just a reflection of those two. 63% overall operating budget of nearly $700 million is compensation. Again, exactly what it was in last year's budget. And then finally, Public Law 2011, Chapter 616 requires us, as part of our regular budget approval process, to talk to you separately, or to show you separately our budget for travels, meals, and entertainment, and memberships, gifts, donations, and sponsorships. This was a part of legislation associated with some turnpike authority reforms a number of years ago. And so we always include this slide at the end. And then I always note that 4 times a year when I do budget forecasts, we also give you current year how we're spending in these same categories. Mr. Chair, that is the presentation. I'll take this down and happy to answer any questions. But just a quick reminder that in the appendix, you've got a lot of the same information that I just presented, but by campus. And so if you're interested in the enrollment information, but you want to see it at a campus by campus level, you can find that in the back of the presentation.
Ryan, thanks very much. And again, just to second your motion here on the incredible amount of work that's gone on, starting at the campus level and building up to the system level. Really impressive work by the presidents, by their CBOs, and all the people who work for them. I don't know if they keep track of hours, but thousands of hours went into this. And the other thing I'd just like to say is that your presentation through graphics of the budget seems to get better and better every year. These are really understandable slides. They're very helpful to look at today, but also to look back on. So thanks for all the work you do on that. So questions people have about the budget as presented. Trustee Alexander.
First, thank you for allowing me to participate in this meeting. I know many of the people on this committee have devoted enormous amount of hours reviewing this and discussing it with the system staff and so forth. But I did have a couple issues. A big issue, let me do the little ones first. Ryan, if you look at page 18 of your slide, it's called FY26 recommended room and board rates.
Yeah.
Under UMA, I don't think the room and board was calculated correctly for FY25. The total looks to be less than the combination of two room and board numbers.
Yeah. Yeah, I see. I think that's a typo. I don't know if Isla, you want to address the specific. I can see the math typo in there.
Okay, if
100%.
assuming there is a typo there, there's just a couple things that intrigue me with this chart. One is UMA's room is much higher than anybody else's, and its board is much less than anybody else's. And I'm just wondering why that is.
Ryan, did you want me to take that?
Yeah.
Okay, yep, sorry. Yeah, so the room rates that are reflected there are the highest, I believe, or an average. And we do have kind of the full spectrum. So if we think about our housing units are a broad range from traditional dorms. We have, I think, 23 of those to full-on apartments with full kitchens and that sort of thing. So the spectrum of our rates is actually a little larger than the spectrum of the other campuses. And then our meal rates were less this past year because we were kind of kicking up that effort, right? So we built the cafe. We've had a cafe for years, but then it wasn't a required charge because of our kitchens. But then once we added the smaller dorm with the 23 beds that did not have kitchens in them, then it became a requirement for students to get meal plans. So the cafe wasn't fully up and running, but we did do some more renovations, small renovations to it this past year, where it's a more traditional cafe, and it offers more full service dining that wasn't available. So that's kind of why you've seen it increase. Like it started small, but it's increased. So that's why that looks so drastic. So, where everybody else is established, we're growing to catch up with everyone else.
Well, you have two dorms, as I understand it, up here on the Hollowell campus. Are those students required to have meal plans in both dorms or not?
So we have 3 dorms. 2 of them have apartments. 1 of them doesn't. The 2 with apartments have lesser meal plans. I think it was 5 meals a week for them. The students who are in the traditional dorms have 19 meal per week plans. And the reason that we did start requiring the people with kitchens to have them is there was a lot of food insecurity issues that we were encountering. So this was a way to help combat that and to be able to use students' financial aid to help them make sure that they had, food, access to food and resources.
Right. No, I'm just understanding this situation. And you're right, you have 3 dorms on the Hollowell campus. That's correct. But this does not have anything to do with Nellie's Cafe. Is that correct?
No, so Nellie's Cafe is independent. We do have a plan with them. If there's snow days and such, then they help us feed the students for those days so that the cafe can close on campus, but we can still provide the students with the plans. But they're an independent entity.
Right. So the cafe you mentioned is not this cafe.
No, it's the cafe on the Augusta campus in Randall Student Center. It's Moose Tracks Cafe. You should stop in
Gotcha.
sometime.
Gotcha. Okay, and so, residence hall occupancy, for, everybody, on 13 is less than capacity. And the one difference, of course, is, UFA, as I understand it. So, there is a system-wide issue and then there's a UMA issue. And, I'm just trying to come to grips with the FY 26 numbers here for UMA. This is chart 40. It says, capacity 103, which is the 3 dorms, correct? Yes, and it says this year, 116, is that the current enrollment in or occupancy for these dorms?
So the occupancy is 103. We actually partnered with the hotel that's adjacent to the campus, and we were housing students in the hotel as overflow.
Okay, so between 103 and 116, you've got people in the overflow unit. Is that
Correct.
fair? But you're projecting next year a significant increase in occupancy. Is that correct?
Correct. So we're expecting to have to use the hotel again in Augusta, and we're also starting a partnership in Bangor as well, where we already have 11 applications.
So this includes Bangor as well as Augusta.
Correct.
Okay. All right. The big question I had, of course, is the difficult one, which the system is going to have to come to grips. And I'm just wondering what happens in terms of handling our budget and our appropriation, our fees and our approval of budgets. If we approve a budget and we do not get what you've built in here, which is the state appropriation and the funding for the Family Medical Leave Act. And so what is the process that would occur? And how is the system intending to deal with that, should it happen? A contingency plan, I guess I'm talking about.
Yeah, so it would, it's good, it would be it would, it's gonna be, I think a little bit's gonna depend on the circumstances. And so, we've been in this situation before. It's not unusual for us to be at FFT or even at the board and approving our budget, and the legislature hasn't finalized it yet. So it's not unusual, although the circumstances we're all aware are a little unique this year because of the current services budget. So we've had this situation before, and it really depends on how much information we know and when we know it. So if we're still in this same situation and we get to May, and the board is getting ready to vote, and we don't have a final resolution to the budget. Let's pretend we don't know any more than we know today. Then the board has a couple of options. You could vote on the budget with the assumption that the 4% is in there, and then the way that scenario would play out is if it didn't materialize, it would be the same as if enrollment doesn't materialize. From a campus perspective, it's still a revenue shortfall, however it happened. And so we would come back to you, as we always do, in the fall, and present an alternative supplemental budget that gets everyone back into balance. We were in this situation in COVID, and we got to the May a board vote on the budget, and it was like really all just really up in the air, not just what was going to go on at the state, but how are we going to figure out tomorrow. And so at that time we pushed the board vote all the way to the last day of the fiscal year. We voted on June 30th, if I remember right, when we had the maximum amount of information that we could. So we've got lots of different options depending what it is, but I feel comfortable that we'll figure it out, and we've got a plan. I hope we don't have to deal with that, but that would be my plan at this level. And then obviously there'll be tons of conversations along the way as it all unfolds.
Right. And can I just ask one more question? Do these budgets reflect the risk of the loss of a lot of federal monies and international students? And how have you built that risk into these projections?
I don't know if Joan wants to jump into that. I'll say, it wasn't built in, not built in the sense that, we obviously didn't know this back in October when we were putting our initial budgets and having campus conversations. But we're all aware of the shifting sands, and so we've been preparing for the things that you can't prepare for as much as we possibly can. So we're having conversations about what ifs. But it's so different and it's such uncharted territory. I don't know that we have the perfect plan yet, but let me defer to the president.
Thank you. Let me just jump in there. I see President Farini Money has her hand up, perhaps to address that, and then we'll get to Trustee Michoud. Yes, President.
Thanks. I would just affirm what Ryan just said and indicate that in a situation, of course, that's similar with our state appropriations. In some ways, it's uncertain. It is changing by the day. We'll get some good news and then some bad news. We're doing regular risk assessment modeling to look at worst case scenarios where the FNA caps change, or to look at situations where our FNA revenues drop significantly. It's just very difficult to predict right now, but what would happen would be similar to what Ryan describes relative to the state, which is we'll just keep looking at this, and depending on how settled things are in May or even later, we'll need to make adjustments possibly for the University of Maine at least, and possibly some of the other campuses as well. Biggest challenges are in the FNA.
Thank you. Before we get to Trustee Michoud, Trustee Alexander, you have the floor. I didn't mean to cut you off. Do you have any other questions?
No, I didn't have another question, but I do think the board's discussion of this budget in May needs to acknowledge what we've taken into account and what the risks are going forward, so that we have a clear policy, publicly known approach to being conservative about what we're doing here, and raising the potential for real harm to this university if certain things occur that would drastically change the assumptions that this budget has developed. I just think we have an opportunity here to build public support and understanding of what we're doing in the environment we're facing. Thank you.
Trustee Michoud.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Actually, a lot of my questions, I know Trustee Alexander actually raised, is particularly when you look at the volatility at the federal level. And Ryan, on the revenue forecasting committee, I know you're on that. I mean, how often do they meet? Are they going to keep meeting on a regular basis because of that volatility? What's happening there? My second question actually does deal with enrollment. Has any of the campuses that deal with a lot of foreign students, particularly Canada, have you seen any decline of students not coming because of the situation that's been happening at the federal level?
All right, I'll take remind me the first one that you asked.
It was on the revenue forecast.
Oh, RFC, yeah. Okay, so on the Revenue Forecasting Committee, actually just briefed the Appropriations Committee yesterday. I'm on this Consensus Economic Forecasting Committee. We met a month ago or so. The RFC just met. It looks like that the revenue impact is going to be minimal to any changes in this budget window. I think, as I had maybe previewed, I think most of the changes that the CEFC made were in the outer years, 27, 28 out there. Didn't expect a significant short-term impact in it. We haven't seen all the numbers, that the agency numbers that they have to go through to finalize things, but it looks generally like, in the scheme of things, a minimal revenue adjustment, which is a positive. I mean, for the last several years, it's been how much more is going to come in, but I feel like I'll speak for one person. I felt relieved when I knew the number was small.
Thank you. Gretchen Catlin?
Thank you. I just wanted to offer a point of clarification to circle back on the residency hall occupancy discussion. I just wanted to highlight that on slide 41, University of Maine at Farmington is projecting to be at 100% occupancy. And then if we forward to slide 44, USM is projecting to be at 96% occupancy. So that's a positive story to share.
Gretchen, could you remind us at Farmington, it's 100% of the available rooms. So how many do we have still offline? That are being renovated?
We're still working on, I believe Mallet is still under construction. So that one's not online yet.
Right.
Okay, yep.
I agree that that's the key factor here in farming.
If I may, Mallet will be back online for the fall semester. And we've taken Dakin and Lockwood off to repurpose, and we've created more single rooms those are the requests that we're getting from students.
Thank you, Laurie. Other questions? Yes, Chair Riley. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you. This has been a terrific review. I think I want to follow up on Trustee Michaud's question about enrollment. There's been extraordinary work on all these universities to build retention and recruitment strategies to look at enrollment, but the demographic cliff is pretty scary. And as Ryan pointed out, UMF is still struggling and has a balanced budget only if it meets some tough goals for cost containment. So I want to caution us that the concerns I have is a couple of campuses that have not been able to meet their long-term projections on budget enrollment are projecting higher enrollment. So I think there is some optimism in some of these enrollment numbers that we'll have to watch carefully. And I appreciate there's a lot of work going on about retention, recruitment. We've been very successful, but I think it's a caution that we need to watch.
I think Mike's question about the Canadian enrollment, we talked about that at ASA on Monday. Okay. On Monday at ASA, Jamie Ballinger looked up the numbers, and I don't remember all of them off the top of my head, but what I remember is none of them were down. They were all up. And it was an interesting conversation in ASA about the Canadian enrollment. Mike, to your other question, Jamie could probably get you those numbers, or maybe somebody on this call has them, but we did specifically talk about the Canadian enrollment expected, and all of the numbers were in the upward direction as of Monday.
Thank you.
Thank you. Other questions? So Ryan, looking back at the chart about where each campus was, Maine, I understand there are challenges at Farmington, which are going to require further work. Maine Law didn't have numbers either. I assume that was just because it's in balance.
Yeah, that's the best thing to have. Just straight up. Dash.
Perfect. Oh. Excellent.
You have a question from Trustee Worth.
So yes, Trustee Worth. Good morning.
Yeah, morning. Sorry, just a clarifying question. From slide, I think it's 19, the annual comprehensive student charges. So Ryan, you said the average there was 3 to 4%. When I'm seeing from UMA for the different categories is 20, 12, 17, 18%. I'm assuming there's a reason or a budgetary gap that's being filled there. Just from my own knowledge, since I'm new, is there some historical error that's being fixed or a new plan that's being put into place that means those are so drastically different from the others? Just so I'm in the loop.
Yeah, so a couple of things. I think it goes back to Trustee Alexander's conversation earlier. So some of it is that we use averages when we calculate out some of those. So, I think we're picking up a high room rate there. And then the other one was there was a new academic student charge, I think, that was also part of the UMA piece as well. And then again, part of it is, again, they're building up a small auxiliary operation, and when you expand that and then you compare one year to the next, you're going to have large increases.
do you mind if I add a little bit to the context?
Please,
of the-
absolutely.
Okay,
Please,
sorry.
go ahead, Ally.
So the academic support fee too, it looks a little, it looks large, like it's a huge growth, but actually, what we did was we consolidated our unified fee with our online web fee, because what we realized was because of the modality of our courses, the majority of students were paying that fee anyway, but that wasn't counted as a mandatory fee. That was one of the, I can't remember exactly what the term is, but the fees that you would pay if you took something in that modality. So we consolidated those. So it was really only, I think it was a $5 increase total. But it looks skewed because now we've bumped it into the mandatory fees section. So, but overall, the students aren't seeing that large of an increase.
Well, Ally, can I follow up on that? Because I know that I appreciate what Ryan just said, but the total student fees are up significantly, are they not? There may be good reason for that, but
the academic support, that's what I was saying is the academic support fee looks like it was up, what was it, $1,500 or something? It looks like it's going to be $1,500. So it was an increase of 500 overall, but it's because we've moved that online fee into the mandatory fees.
Well,
so
I
when
get-
you look at the charts before, it wasn't in there, and that was $12 per credit hour.
yeah, but your total non-tuition fees from students are up $600 a year. There may be good reason for that, but that is so, is it not?
So it's a combination of moving the $12, and then I think, like I said, I think it was $5. I'd have to go back and double check my notes, but it's that combination. So if you put $17 times the $30 into mandatory fees when they weren't already there, that's what makes that look so inflated.
Right. It's not apples to apples.
Right.
In comparison.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Other questions? So where we go from here, so as Ryan mentioned, we have our board meeting scheduled obviously in May. And I'm sure there's going to be discussions between now and then about what's happening with the state appropriation, as he said, what's happening with family medical leave, what's happening at the federal level with some of these issues that President Fernie Money was talking about. But the plan now is to present this budget to the board for approval in May. And again, the recommendation of it, the administration could change on that as we get closer to that. So we'll just have to see. But the working plan now is to move ahead with the May vote. Am I right about that, Ryan?
Yes.
Okay. Other questions or comments about the full system budget? And again, thank you for the great presentation of all the facts and figures here in a way that's understandable. Well, seeing none, then let me read the text of a proposed motion. That the Board of Trustees accepts the recommendation of the Finance, Facilities, and Technology Committee and approves the FY 2026 updated proposed University of Maine System operating and capital budget and recommended student charges. Is there such a motion?
So moved.
Moved by
Second.
Trustee Mishu and seconded by Trustee Kane. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, Beth, could you please take the roll call vote, please?
Trustee Cates,
Yes.
trustee Riley,
Yes.
trustee McMahon,
Yes.
trustee Kane,
Yes.
trustee Flood,
Yes.
trustee Mishu.
Yes.
The motion carries.
Thank you. And again, thank you, Ryan, for your presentation. So moving on to the information, which is at tab 2 in our folders, disposition of Ossipee Trail property at the University of Southern Maine. President Edmondson?
Roger, could I just ask one question?
Oh, sure.
quickly?
Excuse me, Bar. I didn't see your hand. Yes, please.
I'm interrupting and I apologize.
Go
This
ahead.
is not a consent agenda item, is in the budget. It's part of the full board meeting. Thank you.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes.
The Ossipee project, I don't see is it President Edmondson here or Justin, you going to present that?
I'll be presenting.
Oh, thank you, Justin. Go ahead.
So thank you. So we are coming before you for authorization to sell a parcel of land owned by the university at 175 Ossipee Trail in Gorham. It's an approximate 1 acre of land. There is a condemned building on that property owned by a separate entity, and we would like to offer a first right of refusal to that separate entity, given the circumstances around the use of that condemned building. There's a history there. Right now, we have done a comparative market analysis on the property itself. The approximate 1 acre parcels assessed at about $75,000. And so we would like to offer it for sale at no less than that appraised value.
Thank you, Justin. Questions? I'm not seeing any, so let me then read the text of the proposed resolution. That the Finance, Facilities, and Technology Committee approves the following resolution to be forwarded to the Board of Trustee approval at the May 19, 2025 board meeting. That the Board of Trustees accepts the recommendation of the Finance, Facilities, and Technology Committee and authorizes the University of Maine system acting through the University of Southern Maine to sell an approximate 1 acre parcel of land in Gorham, Maine, and offer right of first refusal to the current owners of the building that is on this parcel of land. All final terms and conditions of the sale agreement are subject to review and approval of the University of Maine System Treasurer and General Counsel. Is there such a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Trustee Michu, seconded by Trustee Kane. Are there questions or discussion about the motion? Seeing none, Beth, could you take the roll call, please?
Trustee Cates?
Yes.
Trustee Riley?
Yes.
Trustee McMahon?
Yes.
Trustee Kane?
Yes.
Trustee Flood?
Yes.
Trustee Michu?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Moving on to materials at tab 3, a lease renewal authorization for the University of Southern Maine with T-Mobile Northeast. Justin, are you handling this one as well?
I am. So good morning again.
Morning.
Coming forward for authorization to renew a lease with T-Mobile Northeast, right? This is a continuation or a renewal of an existing lease that is going to be coming to the end. The lease is for an initial 5-year term with an additional options with the option for 3 additional 5-year terms. So a total of 20 years. With an annual rate of $43,908 in the first year with 2% escalations each year. This lease is for a transmitter, a cell phone transmitter that would be on the water tower on our Gorham campus. So any questions?
Thank you. Any questions for Justin about this proposed lease? I'm not seeing any, so let me then read the text of the proposed resolution. That the Finance, Facilities, and Technology Committee approves the following resolution to be forwarded to the consent agenda for Board of Trustee approval at the May 19, 2025 board meeting. That the Board of Trustees accepts the recommendation of the Finance, Facilities, and Technology Committee and authorizes the University of Maine system acting through the University of Southern Maine to extend the lease with T-Mobile for a space on the water tower located at 37 College Avenue in Gorham for a cell tower installation for 20 years and an approximate revenue of $1 million. Is there such a motion?
So moved.
Moved by
Second.
Trustee Michu and seconded by Trustee Kane. Is there any questions or discussion about the motion? Seeing none, Beth, could you take the roll call, please?
Trustee Cates?
Yes.
Trustee Riley?
Yes.
Trustee McMahon?
Yes.
Trustee Kane?
Yes.
Trustee Flood?
Yes.
Trustee Michu?
Yes.
The motion carries.
Thank you. Moving on then to tab 4. The next item for discussion is a Capitol Center space renovation project budget increase request here in Augusta. President Cushman, good morning.
Yes, good morning. Thank you, Chair Cates. So as you can see from this request in the next few tabs, strategic movement is happening at UMA. And this is in the context of revising our strategic plan and growing the momentum heading into our 60th anniversary of UMA in September. So thank you for the opportunity to present a strategically important initiative at a strategically important moment for the University of Maine at Augusta, one that supports our nursing students, enhances workforce development for the state, and maximizes available federal resources. So thanks to the support of Senators Collins and King, UMA and the University of Maine system have received 2 significant federal earmarks to enhance nursing education. In 2022, a total of $4.5 million was awarded and distributed among 5 UMS institutions. And then in 2024, UMA was awarded an additional $4.5 million dedicated exclusively to developing a state-of-the-art nursing facility at our new Capital Center in Augusta. This Capital Center initiative is led by Principal Investigator Dr. Shannon Govin, and it's a mission-critical project for healthcare in Maine. The new facility will serve as a premier simulation and lab center, supporting hands-on learning and modern clinical experiences for our nursing students, as well as cybersecurity students. So with this expansion, we will be able to grow our entering nursing cohort from 64 to 72 students in the first year, with plans to increase to 80 students in the years that follow. We're also planning to explore an accelerated track for students who already hold a baccalaureate degree, which will broaden access and create new pathways into the nursing profession. Importantly, UMA's nursing graduates stay in Maine. In our most recent graduating class, 50 out of 51 students remained in the state to begin their careers. This is a testament to the value of the program. Sorry, I just went and its direct contribution to Maine's healthcare workforce. So various supports for this project have come before FFT and the Board of Trustees a number of times. And today we are here with what we believe will be our final request to bring it across the finish line. So to walk you through the financial components of this proposal, I'll turn it over to Eileen Robinson.
Thank you, President Lilly.
Oh, thank you, President Cushman. So we are here today to request your approval for an increase of up to $125,000 to the authorized budget for the nursing space renovation project at the Capital Center. This funding will allow us to restore some key construction elements that were previously removed during the value engineering process. These elements are essential to ensuring the space is not only functional, but also aligned with modern simulation and learning standards, ultimately enhancing the educational experience for our students and future-proofing our instructional technology. To provide some context, in January of 2024, the board approved a $6.3 million budget for this renovation, and it was funded through the 2 federal earmarks that President Cushman just mentioned. In November of 24, an additional $850,000 became available from those earmarks, and it was approved to bring the total project budget to $7.15 million. And today we're seeking approval to spend an additional $125,000, which would bring the final project budget to $7.3 million. Importantly, this increase will be fully covered by the existing federal earmark funds due to underspent budget from another campus from the original 2022 allocation. So looking ahead, we anticipate substantial completion by this summer, and our first students are expected to begin using the new facility in fall of 25. This final budget request ensures that we're fully leveraging all of the available federal funding and directly supports the continued growth, quality, and accessibility of nursing education, not just at UMA, but for the entire state of Maine. So thank you for your consideration, and we welcome any questions that the committee has.
Thanks, Allie. Questions? Allie, I assume the money is in hand?
Correct.
Great. Trustee Alexander.
I certainly don't oppose or recommend that you oppose the use of available federal funds sitting in the green part of the ledger. But we heard in ASA just the other day that the nursing program enrollment statewide is below projections and not what has been estimated will occur with these incredible investments on the nursing programs that have been done throughout our campuses. Can you comment on that at UMA and what the exact prediction is or why you feel you're going to fill these slots? Thanks.
Thanks. That's a good question. I'm going to call on John Henry to give us an estimate of where we are right now with nursing applications for the fall. He's here.
Yes, I am here. Thank you very much
you.
for the question. Yeah, first to point out that the funding is going to support nursing and cybersecurity. This is the workforce simulation center for both, primarily nursing, but also cybersecurity will benefit from some of the return of some of these elements that we did value engineer out from the and now that we have the leftover funds, we can pay for those. Nursing applications are up. I don't have the exact number, but it is incrementally up. I think what will help us this fall is on yield of those applications. Our facility has been pretty modest, I guess would be the nicest way to say it, on the back of the Civic Center. And having the state-of-the-art facility available will attract more students because we do have the new facility beginning fall, and we have the residence halls available to attract students from away who wish to live residentially in Hollowell and attend the university in the fall. So our numbers are very good. We're up in double digits for the fall already, actually 50% in first-year students who are registered. So I don't expect that trend to continue, but I have no idea, no hope that we're going to go backwards for our fall 25 entering class.
Thanks. Other questions? I'm seeing that. I'll read the text of the proposed resolution, but also a shout out to I think Maine General Health made a significant contribution to this project as well, for which we are grateful. So let me read the text of the proposed resolution that the Finance, Facilities, and Technology Committee approves the following resolution to be forwarded to the Board of Trustees consent agenda at the May 19, 2025 board meeting, that the Board of Trustees accepts the recommendation of the Finance, Facilities, and Technology Committee and authorizes the University of Maine system acting through the University of Maine Augusta to increase the Capital Center project budget by $125,000 to complete the nursing education and training space, making the total budget $7.275 million. Is there such a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Trustee
Second.
Michoud and seconded by Trustee Kane. Discussion of the motion? Seeing none, Beth, could you take the roll call?
Trustee Cates,
Yes.
trustee Riley,
Yes.
trustee McMahon,
Yes.
trustee Kane,
Yes.
trustee Flood,
Yes.
trustee Michoud.
Yes.
The motion carries.
Thank you. We'll move on then to tab 5, which is Ellsworth Center lease renewal. Also the University of Maine at Augusta. And again, President Cushman.
Thank you. So I'm happy to speak with you today about UMA's ongoing commitment of higher education access to all populations and an essential component of our mission to deliver accessible, high-quality education to students across Maine, especially those who are place-bound, as through our learning centers. So as you know, UMA centers play a pivotal role in fulfilling that institutional mission, and we approach the management of these spaces with strategic intent and fiscal discipline. For that reason, we conduct comprehensive annual reviews of all leased properties to ensure they continue to meet institutional needs and also identify potential opportunities for cost savings and greater operational efficiency. And I have to say this intentional approach yields meaningful results. Since 2019, UMA has reduced its leased square footage by 44%. These reductions have largely been achieved by negotiating MOUs and lease terms rather than simply renewing existing agreements. So for example, the FY26 budget reflects approximately $100,000 in net savings that stem from space reductions and lease restructuring efforts implemented in FY25. And we expect to continue generating savings in future years as we continue proactively to evaluate our space needs. So today, we're here to seek your approval to extend the lease for a strategically important location, the UMA Ellsworth Center, the University of Maine System's access point for place-bound Hancock County residents and UMaine Machias nursing students. To provide further details on the lease extension and its value to the institution and community, I'll now turn it over to Eileen Robinson.
Thank you. So as President Cushman said, we're here today to request your approval to extend the lease for the UMA Ellsworth Center for a period of 5 years. This lease extension will maintain UMA's presence in the 6,022 square foot facility at approximately $90,000 per year. The Ellsworth Center serves as a critical access point for students in the Down East region, particularly in high demand programs such as nursing and cybersecurity, and plays a key role in supporting our prison education program in that area. Beginning in fall 25, we will offer in-person cybersecurity classes at this site and host 24 full-time and 4 part-time nursing students for on-site instruction. This center is also crucial to our growing collaborations within the University of Maine system. Through a new partnership with the University of Maine at Machias, we'll welcome our first cohort of 7 Machias-based nursing students who will use Ellsworth Simulation Lab for clinical training. This shared use underscores our commitment to maximizing institutional impact and student access through intercampus collaborations. From a financial perspective, this lease renewal is fiscally responsible. The original lease included a 5% annual escalator. However, through some successful renegotiation, we secured a new agreement that holds the rate flat through 2029, with only a modest 2.5% increase in the final 2 years. So this structure is expected to save UMA approximately $50,000 over the lease term, and it's all while avoiding the disruption and the cost of relocation. And moreover, we did do some research, and there are no viable alternative facilities in Ellsworth that offer comparable functionality and readiness. The current location is already optimized for our instructional needs and the community presence. This lease extension enables UMA to continue delivering critical academic programs in a key region of the state. It maintains a cost-effective and operationally sound facility, and expands the impact of our partnerships across the University of Maine system. So with that, we thank you for your consideration, and we're happy to take any questions at this time.
Thank you, Ellie. Questions? Trustee Michoud.
Yep, thank you. Thank you very much, Madam President. Yeah, when you look at the utilization on the Ellsworth Center, I assume you're counting those students that go there physically as well as those that use the facility online. Is that assumption correct? Number one.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, my second question is that facility part of the Eastern Maine Community College system as well, or not part of it? Is that a partnership with them? And if so, do you count the students that, even though they're might not be with UMA, the student population that's there because of the community college? Because the whole idea is try to get community college students into the UMA system. So do you include that as part of the figure?
That is a good question. Our only agreement with Eastern Maine Community Colleges is the Katahdin Higher Education Center in East Millinocket, but we have had conversations with them about them utilizing the Ellsworth Center, especially for nursing students. So the talks have not are not underway right now, but we are open to further conversations about that.
Okay, so there's no effort with the community college as it relates to the Ellsworth Center then?
Correct.
Okay. It used to be, wasn't it? Wasn't that part of an agreement?
I'm not aware of that. Eileen's been here longer than I.
Yes, I believe it was 2016. Eastern Maine Community College actually left the Ellsworth Center, but until 2016, yes, they were a part of it.
Okay. Yep. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee. Chair Riley.
Thanks. I love the collaboration with Machias, but I'm curious, we have so many of these sim labs, and I know how expensive they are to buy and maintain. How often is it used in the Ellsworth Center, and do you offer evening and weekend classes?
So I'd have to check back with our center director to see exactly when the classes are offered. But these clinical classes are offered several times a week. So I do know several times a week that the nursing students are using it. And I just want to remind everyone too that the original simulation mannequins and beds and that sort of thing was actually purchased with our federal funds during HERF funds. So we were able to really create these robust simulation labs that are now used by multiple campuses through that funding source.
And I'll just add, our centers do have evening and weekend hours, but I'm not sure specifically which courses are taught at the Ellsworth Center during that time.
Thank you. Further questions? I'm not seeing any, so then let me then read the text of the proposed resolution that the Finance, Facilities, and Technology Committee approves the following resolution to be forwarded to the consent agenda for the Board of Trustee approval at the May 19, 2025 board meeting. That the Board of Trustees accepts the recommendation of the Finance, Facilities, and Technology Committee and authorizes the University of Maine system, acting through the University of Maine at Augusta, requests authorization to extend the existing lease for 5 years with an approximate total cost of $460,000 with all final terms and conditions subject to review and approval of the University of Maine system treasurer and general counsel. So such a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Trustee Michoud, second by Trustee Kane. Discussion on the motion. Seeing none, Beth, could you call the roll, please?
Trustee Cates?
Yes.
Trustee Riley?
Yes.
Trustee McMahon?
Yes.
Trustee Kane,
Yes.
trustee Flood,
Yes.
trustee Michu,
Yes.
motion carries.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is a matter involving additional housing in Hallwell for the University of Maine at Augusta. President Cushman.
Yes, thank you for the opportunity to present an important update on a strategic initiative that builds on the momentum UMA has established in recent years, expanding student access, supporting enrollment growth, and creating a strong residential experience that meets the needs of our evolving student population. And this is evidenced by the considerable number of requests for student housing, more than we are currently able to meet. So in little background, in 2018, UMA issued RFP number 2018-81 to explore student housing options within close proximity to campus. Through that competitive process, Massway Development LLC was selected for its student-centered approach, cost efficiency, and alignment with UMA's vision for high-quality, community-oriented housing. Since that time, housing demand has consistently exceeded our available capacity. UMA currently leases 103 beds in Hallowell, and during the fall 2024 and spring 2025 semester, we actually had to house additional students in a local hotel, and we are counting on 20 in the fall for that. As of April 24th, we have received 144 housing applications for the upcoming academic year. We currently have 103 beds, I want to remind you, and that surpasses last year's total, and it underscores the continued growing interest in housing. So in response to this demand, we want to inform the committee that UMA will be bringing forward a proposal at the next meeting to enter an additional lease with Massway Development for a new residence hall in Hallowell. The new facility would add 62 student beds, a full-service dining hall, which is currently lacking at the space, an outdoor recreation space, and a large student commons area. This will all greatly enhance both the residential and co-curricular experience at UMA, and also serve our growing revenue generated by hosting conferencing and events in partnership with Sodexo. And that extra revenue will help continue closing our auxiliary gap. So consolidating student housing into a single well-equipped location rather than having a hotel residency as well. This allows us to maximize operational efficiency and maintain economies of scale. And the strategy aligns with UMA's capital plan. It supports the broader goals of the University of Maine System Strategic Plan, including increasing enrollment, expanding student life, and enhancing completion outcomes. So to provide more details on financial and operational planning, I'll turn it over to Eileen Robinson.
Great. Thank you again, President Cushman. And thank you to the committee for allowing us to present this informational item today. At our next FFT meeting, we'll be bringing forward a proposed lease for your consideration. The lease spans 15 years with annual payments of approximately $900,000 and a total value of $13.6 million. It includes no inflationary escalators, providing long-term financial predictability. The lease will be funded through a combination of student room and board revenue, additional credit hour generation, auxiliary funds, and conference and event income. Importantly, Massway, our housing partner, will cover operating costs up to $285,000 annually, with UMA responsible only for any excess. From an operational perspective, maintaining a centralized housing model in Hallowell is not only cost-effective by offering economies of scale, but it also allows us to provide consistent services and support. Keeping our housing units in one location just 5 miles or 10 minutes from the campus isn't just convenient and a financial win. More importantly, it benefits our students. 52% of residents are enrolled in UMA-specific in-person programs like architecture and aviation. These students benefit from the community that has been established and the programming that we're able to offer. Additionally, in fall 2024, 46% of the students in housing were student athletes, for whom residential stability plays a key role in academic and athletic success. The proposed new unit includes a full-service dining facility, which is a game changer for our operations. Sodexo estimates that this will result in a $100,000 increase in revenue in the first year alone due to additional meal plans and expanded conferencing capabilities. It will also help us host summer camps, events, and conferences, an area that's previously been limited by the lack of food service on site. Should housing demand at UMA decline in future years, we are well positioned to adapt without overcommitting our resources. We currently manage 3 other leased housing units at the Stevens Commons location. First is Erskine Hall with 42 beds that has a lease that ends in 2027. Next is Stevens Hall with 38 beds that has a lease that ends in 2029. And lastly is Cleveland Hall with 23 beds that has a lease that ends in 2033. All three leases are structured to allow for a non-renewal at their term end dates and buyout terms should the need arise sooner. This means that we can scale down if necessary and concentrate operations at the new facility, avoiding excess inventory while maintaining a strong residential program and access to full service dining facility. Finally, this project advances system-wide priorities by expanding housing near the State House, enhancing UMA's ability to support students from across the University of Maine system who are participating in summer internships and co-op programs in Augusta. It's something that we already do, but adding this additional residence unit would allow us to grow that. This initiative represents a thoughtful, scalable, and student-centered investment in UMA's future. We appreciate the committee's time and consideration, and we look forward to formally presenting this request at the next meeting. So we're happy to take any questions you have at this time.
Thanks, Eileen, and thanks, President Cushman. Questions, Trustee Flood?
Thank you, everyone. We referenced the Stevens location in the new facility. Ally, I just didn't know, is this truly a greenfield right up from the bare ground kind of facility, or is it renovation of a former building, therefore calling it a new facility? I didn't quite understand the definition of new in this case.
Yeah, that's a great question because the other three buildings were all renovations of old buildings. This is actually a new from the ground up building, and the proposed location is directly between Stevens and Erskine. So it would create the like semicircle of UMA housing in that area.
Great. Yeah, and it seems as though maybe having one brand new structure in that area might be really good. I mean, we've done our fair share of historic preservation type stuff there. Having actually a spanking new item might be really a great idea. So thank you for the information.
Thank you.
Next, Trustee. Trustee Michaud.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, Ally, a quick question here. When you on this particular facility on residential, have you reached out to the Kennebec Valley Community College? Because I know they were looking at residential hall, and was that not an option, trying to partner with them as far as having a facility that both systems could utilize?
And I'll let President Cushman address this as well, but no, to my knowledge, we have not reached out to Kennebec Community College. We've tried to keep it centralized, and it's really because all of our system supports are there, right? So we have a residence director. We are in the process of hiring a living counselor. Our transportation is from there. All of the programming happens there. So just trying to create that community and culture is really why it's super important for us to try to keep all of our housing in one location.
Yeah, and I want to add, the impetus for this is that we're overflowing, right? So we're building this for UMA students, but we have great relations with KVCC, and I could imagine if there's a time when residency drops, we could, easily get out of a lease, but we could also talk at that point with KVCC about their need for housing. I think partnership is always a good idea.
Yeah, I agree, and I think it's good to do it beforehand rather than build it and say, well, we'll talk to them next time around, because I know that's an issue with the community college system as well for residential. And when you look at the KVCC, it's not too far from Augusta, and they probably could have been a place centrally located for both systems to utilize. And it's good to do that. And I think try to get a break, I wouldn't say the silo. I mean, we hear a lot about, yeah, we're talking, but I'd rather see a lot more action as far as the two systems working together, particularly when you look at housing and some of the other issues that are crucial, because I think that also will help us, the university actually gets more enrollments from the community college system into the university system. If you actually have a campus or a residential hall where you have both student populations there. So
Yeah, I mean, it's a great option. And for example, our Brunswick Center is located with Southern Maine Community College residence halls, and that's a really good partnership. And we do have students who come over. So yeah, I mean, talks with KVCC make a lot of sense in this context. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, trustee. Other questions? Trustee Alexander, yes.
I'm a little concerned about the risk factor and the one-sided nature of the negotiations here. I'm wondering if, as a university system, if it's a good idea to have an RFP issued in 2018 and to continue dealing with the individual who company that achieved the first offer to do all of the work on the campus without any competitive process at all. I also would note that this is a huge expansion. This is a very large facility and will include common areas, recreational activities, and dining. And so I gather you're going to have to pay Sedesco to come out and do work for your dining here for the whole set of dorms in the area. And if you're paying right now room and board for the ones who are overflowing, you won't be increasing your revenues by serving people that are already enrolled and living in an alternative environment. So I'm just concerned about the risk factor for the system. This is completely opposite the trends we've seen throughout our other campuses. I just think it's a unique trend that you've documented here. And we ought to think carefully about why this is happening and whether there are lessons here that can be used by other campuses to expand their dorm and residential enrollment. So I do think that the lack of competitive aspect to this should raise a red flag with the committee. I'm wondering if it does.
Thank you, Barbara. That's a very important question, the question of risk, and it's one we've considered carefully with our partner. And I think the best aspect of this is that we are leasing, and so it makes it easy for us to withdraw from some of the housing if we need to very quickly. And in terms of a competitive bid process, we followed the bid process in 2018, and we're following the rules in place for expansion. But what really it comes down to is that it's successful. Our students love it. It's not the traditional dorm. It's walkable to a downtown. It's safe, and there's built-in community engagement. And we already have our supports in place, our residence advisors and such. So that's why we see it as a low risk, high opportunity position.
And I think too, we need to remember that we're in a different place than the other campuses. So yes, we're trying to grow, but we're trying to grow, incrementally and very strategically. So where they may not be able to fill their dorms, they also have many more dorms than what we're even proposing if we were to add this housing unit. So I think we just need to think about the scale as well. This is a much smaller scale than the other campuses.
Chair Riley. You're on mute.
Just wanted to follow up on that point, President Cushman. You said it's a 15-year lease, but you said you could quickly get out of it. Could you just explain what's your obligation, and if this thing doesn't materialize with the numbers in a year or two?
Yeah, Eileen addressed that, but I'm going to have her speak on that a bit more.
Sure. So we wouldn't want to get out of the new lease because that's the one that has the cafe and such. We would actually bow out of one of the other leases. So either Erskine, Stevens, or Cleveland, depending on timing and what makes the most sense for our student population.
Thank you. Ryan?
Yeah, I just wanted to go back Trustee Alexander's comments. I think they're all really good questions, and I think this is a great debate, and I look forward to more at the next meeting. I do want to though note that the campus has not done anything wrong here. There's no red flags that should be raised. There are questions, then 100%, and if the committee decides that you think it's the best position of the university that we go out for an RFP in this case, then we'll take that advice like we would, or direction like we always do from the trustees. But I don't want anyone that's just tuning in to and watch this part to somehow think that there was some procedural error or we allowed the campus to do something that they shouldn't have. This is all completely within the original 2018 RFP. If we want to have a different discussion and go in slightly different direction, then by all means, completely appropriate. But I don't want anyone to think that there was an RFP flaw here, because there wasn't.
Thank you, Ryan. Gretchen?
Thank you. I just want to build on what Ryan was highlighting, that we did follow public procurement rules, regulations with this process. And through that, this was a competitively bid process. And through that process, Mastway Development was awarded the right to enter into leases for these dormitories. So all procurement rules were followed in this process.
And I think the record's clear on that, and thank you for emphasizing that. Other questions? I've got a couple of what else does. So let me, Barbara, let me go.
Go ahead.
Say if I could. So looking back at this in 2018, 7 years ago, there was a proposal for housing for University of Maine at Augusta, and there was a completely appropriate RFP process which took place. There were, I think, 2 or 3 other bidders. Mastway, which owns this project, was the clear winner. And by all accounts, they've done a terrific job. But, what we do here, particularly if we're committing to another 60 plus beds, is I think we're saying that not only just for now, but for the next generation, any quote on-campus close quote housing that's going to be associated with the University of Maine Augusta is going to be 5 miles away. And I think we're all interested in building up the campus identity and the campus loyalty and the campus identification of students with the University of Maine at Augusta. But I don't know why we would want to be committing to expanding housing so far off campus when there might be other alternatives available. There's land in the vicinity of the University of Maine at Augusta in North Augusta, which is undeveloped. Nobody came forward 7 years ago with a proposal to use that land, but I don't know that now, 7 years later, there might not be such proposals. And I think if we could wave a magic wand and put the housing for UMA on or right adjacent to the campus, that's a goal we would all want to pursue. And I understand that there's been at least some interest expressed by local developers to potentially do that. And I know Mastway's done a great job here, but our housing costs are significantly higher at the University of Maine at Augusta than any other campus. And I don't know why we wouldn't want to go through the RFP process again, see if something adjacent to campus might come up that would put student housing right there so people could literally walk to the campus. That might happen. As far as the leases we currently have with Mastway and Hallwell, I think I'm correct in saying that we have the right to, not saying we should or we would, but we have the right to terminate those leases essentially at any time. So for instance, the last building which we lease, which is lease expires in 2023, 2033. I'm not sure we are actually committed to staying there that long. So I know that I appreciate the need which has been articulated, and I appreciate the desire to create more of a campus experience. But if we have an opportunity now to do it in a way which builds more of an actual campus experience, I don't know why we wouldn't want to pursue that. So that's my 2 cents. Trustee Alexander.
Yeah, can I just respond to that very quickly?
Yes, please.
Yeah, thank you. So we run shuttles between the housing and the campus, and the students who are in housing are often on campus. And in fact, because they have to wait for the shuttle, they might be more often on campus than they would be if the housing was close by. But of course, we will follow what the trustees recommend in this case. We are happy with the current situation, but we understand and will take direction as needed.
It's just one trustee's perspective. Trustee Alexander.
I think it's appropriate as not a legal matter, but a more appropriate policy matter to pursue a new public RFP. And I don't have a vote on this committee, but I do think that relying on a 2008 RFP may not be illegal or improper, but I don't think it's appropriate in the current situation.
Just a clarification, it's 2018, not
2018, I'm sorry. What did I say? Sorry, I have a
You
bit of.
said 2008, but that's fine.
Well, as you can tell. So I've miscombobulated here, but I think my point is the same as Chair Cates's.
This is informational only today, so they're going to come back at our next meeting. But other questions or any requests for information for the next time we talk about this? I'm not seeing any. So President Cushman or Eiley, anything further you'd like to say in this session?
I'll just say, really appreciate the input, and we will take it in and consider it, and happy to present at the next meeting. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks very much, and thanks for your willingness to engage in this kind of discussion. Appreciate it. We have one more UMA item on the agenda, and then maybe we can take a brief break because we are on schedule here. Next at tab 7, the Cybersecurity Program Training and Simulation Range Platform, the SimSpace at the University of Maine at Augusta. And again, President Cushman.
Thank you. I'm pleased to share an important advancement in one of UMA's fastest growing and most recognized academic programs, cybersecurity. So in 2014, UMA launched its bachelor's degree in cybersecurity. Since then, the program has grown significantly, earning national recognition and multiple awards for excellence. Today, we offer a full spectrum of cybersecurity education, including associates through master's degrees, as well as certificates and micro-credentials. This comprehensive approach reflects both student demand and industry need. For the past 6 years, our program has relied on Cyberbit to deliver critical simulation and training components, and Cyberbit has served us very well. But our program has evolved, and we need now a more flexible and scalable platform, one that supports real-world network simulations, advanced training environments, and better integration with our expanding curriculum. So after conducting a competitive RFP process, SimSpace was selected as the top solution. Its advanced capabilities, seamless curriculum alignment, and improved cost efficiency make it the logical choice to power the next phase of UMA's cybersecurity leadership. And to share more details on the platform and associated financial commitments, I'll turn it over to Eiley Robinson.
Thank you.
Thank you. So we're here today seeking your approval for the University of Maine at Augusta to enter into a contract with SimSpace, a next generation cybersecurity training and simulation platform. The proposed agreement is a 3-year contract at $340,000 annually, with the option to renew for up to 3 additional 1-year terms. The total maximum project cost is $2.145 million, and the investment will be fully funded through UMA's E&G budget. Importantly, this transition into SimSpace will save UMA approximately $40,000 each year compared to our current platform, Cyberbit, while delivering significantly enhanced capabilities and flexibility. This is more than a technology upgrade, though. SimSpace represents a strategic investment in UMA's academic mission in strengthening Maine's cybersecurity infrastructure and in preparing highly skilled, career-ready workforce. SimSpace will serve as a flagship simulation hub where students can engage in real-world, hands-on learning in areas like incident response, penetration testing, and network defense. It will expand experiential learning across UMA's cybersecurity, data science, and IT programs, and support faculty-led research and grant activity through advanced network modeling. Additionally, it will enable UMA to deliver custom cybersecurity training for Maine's municipalities, K-12 schools, healthcare providers, and small businesses, extending our reach and impact across the state. If it's approved, we expect SimSpace to be fully integrated by fall 25, aligning with the opening of our new UMA Capital Center, further strengthening our commitment to the workforce development and community engagement. There are no changes to square footage or additional ongoing operating costs associated with this project. This initiative enhances UMA's position as a leader in cybersecurity education and supports Maine's economic resilience and delivers high-impact applied training opportunities to Maine students across the state. So thank you for your time and consideration. We're happy to answer any questions. And Dr. Henry Felch has joined us to address any technical or instructional aspects of this implementation.
Thanks, Eileen. Questions for either of them or for the doctor? I am not seeing any, so thank you very much. Let me read that.
Trustee Mishu has a.
I'm sorry, Trustee Mishu, I didn't see you.
Yep. Well, thank you. Just a quick question on the, and I might have missed it. With this expansion, do you think that how much of the enrollment increases do you think will be because of it? And my second question actually deals with the programming itself. I know the community college system also offers some cyber programs as well. And because with free community college, that they offer, do you see, is that going to be too much of a competitive disadvantage for us? Or I guess those are the two questions.
Well, I guess my first response is that we offer different levels of degrees of cybersecurity from the community colleges. We have associates, but we also have bachelor's and master's. I don't know specifically about the enrollment increase as due to this, but I do know that the new platform is better suited to enrollment increases. But I'm going to let Eileen or John take this too.
Just briefly, we just signed yesterday afternoon 3 articulation agreements with Central Maine Community College, articulating their programs in computing information and digital forensics and computer technology into our CIS and cybersecurity programs, hot off the press.
Great.
And I also want to ask Henry Felch to weigh in, and he's the head of our cybersecurity program.
Doctor, welcome.
Thank you. I will add that you mentioned with these community colleges, and I think that in the last years or so we've had with the cyber bit, we've offered the cyber range to our partners we have with articulation agreements. This new platform extends that even further, where we can incorporate all cyber within the state community colleges to research and to even the K-12. But not only that, we're also starting to integrate a lot with the UMaine system in Orono with some of their research in computer engineering and critical infrastructure as well. So it isn't that we're competing with anybody. We're sort of enhancing all the tools that we have to share that capability with everybody that we have for, as agreements with and so forth, and to bring all those from the community colleges further into our program, and then promote them all the way up into getting a master's degrees and so forth. So I think this increases our enrollment because this is the only range of its type north of Boston, and it provides the most realistic environment anyone will ever see until they actually encounter this in the real world.
That's great. Thank you very much. I didn't realize you just signed the articulation agreement. So that was one of the issues is is the community college doing it. If they actually want to further their education, I can see actually we can actually have an increase in enrollment. So that's good to see. I'd be interested, I'm going to support this, but to see a copy of that articulation agreement, if I could, at a later date, not right now.
And also just a thing, we signed them with CMCC yesterday. We also have them with Northern Maine Community Colleges. Eastern Maine Community Colleges is in the work. We have existing with Southern Maine Community Colleges. And we're also working on just about every community college in this state. The plan is to have an articulation coming into our program within the next 6 months to a year.
Oh, that's excellent. Well, keep up the great work.
Thank you, Doctor. Thanks for joining us this morning. Other questions? I'm not seeing any, so let me read the text of the proposed resolution that the Board of Trustees accepts the recommendation of the Finance, Facilities, and Technology Committee and authorizes the University of Maine system acting through the University of Maine at Augusta for authorization to spend $340,000 annually for 3 years for a total of $1,020,000 with the option to renew for up to 3 additional one-year terms on a cybersecurity training platform. The total maximum cost for the platform is estimated to be $2,145,442. Is there such a motion? I see his hands up. Moved by Trustee Michoud, seconded. Seconded by Dr. Kane. Thank you, Doctor.
Yeah, me.
Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, Beth, could you take the roll call, please?
Trustee Cates?
Yes.
Trustee Riley?
Yes.
Trustee McMahon?
Yes.
Trustee Kane?
Yes.
Trustee Flood?
Yes.
Trustee Michoud?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. And Ryan reminded me that I misspoke earlier. There's one more University of Maine at Augusta agenda item, which we'll take up now, and then we can take a break. It's tab 8, and it is access. Oh, excuse me. The Bangor Cafe at the University of Maine at Augusta. Excuse me, President Cushman.
Thank you. Yes, this is the last time you'll have to hear me today. So appreciate the opportunity to present an exciting initiative for the University of Maine at Augusta's Bangor campus. And it directly supports UMA's mission, enhances student success, and advances our strategic goals of community engagement and sustainable revenue generation. Today, we are seeking authorization to establish a cafe. This initiative builds on the momentum of our recent expansion of student housing to Bangor, which mirrors the successful hotel partnership we launched in Augusta. And we are seeing student need for housing in Bangor as well. So for the first time, we have UMA Bangor students living adjacent to campus, and providing an on-site dining option is both a logical and essential next step given the food insecurity of many of our students to support their needs and strengthen the campus community. We already have 11 student applications for the Bangor Hotel next year, and we expect that number to start growing just as it has in Augusta. The cafe will also provide daily benefit to our dental hygiene and veterinary technology students who are on that campus all day long, Monday through Friday, and currently lack convenient food options, and also food options for other entities that lease space on the Bangor campus. And the absence of kitchen facilities has long limited our ability to host more events and conferences in Bangor, although we have facilities otherwise. The cafe not only fills that gap, but also unlocks new revenue generating potential by enhancing the conferencing and catering capabilities and thinking about things like workforce development trainings and conferences. So to walk you through the financial details and the broader impact of this project, I'll turn things over to Eileen Robinson.
Thank you again. This project aligns fully with UMA's long-term strategy and is included in our capital plan. During the FY26 budget planning process, the cafe was identified as a critical need, particularly to support students residing at the local Quality Inn. As a result, both revenues and expenses were incorporated into our auxiliary budget. Even with this investment, we are projecting a 32% reduction in the auxiliary deficit from FY25 to FY26 budget, which is demonstrating that our auxiliary operations are truly moving in the right direction. Design work on this project began concurrently with the budget development, and now we're pleased to bring forward a well-scoped, mission-driven proposal. While the $700,000 investment may seem significant, we're confident that the cafe's ability to deliver returns in both student service and financial performance will justify that cost. So here are a few reasons to support our confidence. So first, Sodexo projects that conferencing activity in Bangor will actually triple within the first year of cafe operations, helping us tap into previously missed revenue opportunities. In fact, they're so confident in the success of this cafe, they're willing to give UMA an interest-free 6-year loan to cover a portion of the equipment purchases to getting the kitchen up and running. Second, we're expecting at least 21 students to participate in the meal plan. Currently, as President Cushman said, there are 11 students expected to be in the hotel that will be required to participate in the meal plan. But we're also conservatively anticipating at least 10 dental hygiene and vet tech students will opt into the voluntary plan. Many of these students, like President Cushman said, they spend all day in labs. And they currently rely on entities like DoorDash to bring them food. So when we mentioned this to students and faculty, they were all very excited because with an on-campus option, students can save money and use financial aid to help cover their meals if they opt into these plans. So third, in partnership with Sodexo, we're launching a targeted marketing campaign to encourage nearby businesses to use the new cafe. In a recent tenants meeting, both Maine Public Broadcasting and Bangor Rehab expressed their excitement over having meal options just steps away from their businesses. And finally, we conservatively projected a $10,000 retail sales during the first year, which we think is a realistic figure, and we expect it to grow as the cafe becomes a campus and community hub. Funding for the cafe would come from a blended model. So first, it would be from proceeds from UMA's 2024 Bangor land sale to the Bangor Housing Authority. The second would be an interest-free loan from Sodexo that I previously mentioned. And then the third would be from capital project funds from both FY25 and FY26. Operational costs will be covered through revenue from student meal plans, event catering, conferencing services, and general retail sales. The cafe will actually repurpose a decommissioned art room in Eastport Hall, and that location was chosen for its ideal size, the central location to activities, and access to existing infrastructure like plumbing. We're currently in the design phase with a targeted completion date of August 15th in time to serve the fall students if this is accepted. So. This project represents far more than just a cafe. It's about offering student housing adjacent to the Bangor campus for the first time ever. It's about creating a community and supporting academic success and making the Bangor campus a more vibrant and functional environment for everyone who learns and works there. So with that, we're happy to take any questions that you have.
Thank you, President, and thank you, Eily. Questions? Trustee Michoud?
Sorry, I forgot to put my hand down. I'm all set. Thank you.
Okay. Are there questions? I see none, so let me read the text of the proposed motion. That the Board of Trustees acting through the Finance, Facilities, and Technology Committee authorizes the University of Maine system acting through the University of Maine at Augusta to spend up to $700,000 to establish a cafe in Eastport Hall on the Bangor campus. Is there such a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Trustee
Second.
Michoud and seconded by Trustee Kane. Discussion on the motion? Not, could you call the roll, please, Beth?
Trustee Cates,
Yes.
trustee Riley. Don't see. Trustee McMahon,
Yes.
trustee Kane,
Yes.
trustee Flood,
Yes.
Michoud,
Yes.
and carries.
Thank you. So now I think we've completed the UMA items and we are exactly on schedule to the minute. So why don't we take just 5 minutes because we still have a ways to go and we'll reconvene at 10, 11 past 10. Thanks very much. Okay, I think we have most people coming back. Thank you very much. So we'll resume our agenda, and the next item is in our materials is at tab 9. Access control at the University of Maine and University of Maine Machias. President Fruity Monday, good morning.
Good morning, everybody. Good to see you. I will jump right in. This is an item coming to you seeking your authorization to allocate up to $783,000 to transition to a new access control system called Lenel S2. And this is due to the manufacturing discontinuation of the current system. So this is necessary for us to be able to continue to support auxiliary services in the residence halls and some E&G facilities. Kelly can go into more detail, but we are seeking this authorization so that we can transition this, and we will bring funds in to do this from E&G, auxiliary, and auxiliary reserves.
Kelly?
I don't have anything to add. President summarized that nicely. I'm happy to take questions if there are any from the trustees.
Questions? I'm not seeing any, so let me read the text of the resolution. That the Finance, Facilities, and Technology Committee authorizes the University of Maine system acting through the University of Maine to allocate up to $783,000 to transition to a new access control system. Any discussion? I'm sorry, is there such a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Trustee Mishu and seconded by Trustee Kane. Is there discussion? Seeing none, Beth, could you call the roll, please?
Trustee Cates,
Yes.
Trustee Riley,
Yes.
Trustee McMahon,
Yes.
Trustee Kane,
Yes.
Trustee Flood,
Yes.
Trustee Mishu,
Yes.
motion carries.
Thank you. The next item, which is at tab 10 in our materials, establishment of the Spofford Harris Kimball Chair in Mathematics, University of Maine. President Fruity Monday.
Thank you again. We actually have 3 items in a row here, and so I'll do a quick intro and then ask if Gabe Paquette can speak to each if he is on the line. Yes. So the Spofford Harris Kimball Chair in Mathematics, we're very excited about this, and Associate Vice President and Provost Paquette, if you could speak to this, please.
Yes, on the Spofford Harris Kimball Chair in Mathematics, this is a very exciting opportunity to provide great support for a leading professor. I'm sure this will assist greatly, not only with our recruitment and retention, but also with the educational opportunities that will be afforded to the holder of the professorship in order to engage students, both graduate and undergraduate. Thank you, President Fruity Monday and Trustee Cates.
Mm-hmm. And this is funded by an external gift.
Yes, it is. A gift made in the name of the Chick Family Trust.
Unless it's proprietary information, could you remind us what, maybe in general or specifically with this chair, what the cost of endowing a chair is? Maybe there's no simple answer to that question.
But my understanding is that the threshold is $1 million. And this greatly exceeds that.
Thank you. Other questions? Let me read then the text of the proposed resolution that the Board of Trustees accepts the recommendation of the Finance, Facilities, and Technology Committee and authorizes the University of Maine system acting through the University of Maine to establish the Spofford Harris Kimball Chair in Mathematics. Is there such a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Trustee Mishu, seconded by Trustee Kane. Any discussion or questions? And just generally speaking, before a chair is named after an individual, I take it that there is some vetting of the individual, and that's been done in this case. And I'm sure this gentleman is more than worthy, but could you just briefly discuss what you go through before you recommend the endowment of a chair?
Yes, this Dr. Kimball was the chair of the mathematics department, and so we did our usual sort of look through records as well as press to ensure that this is a worthy namesake for this chair.
Thank you. Other discussion? If seeing none, Beth, could you call the roll?
Trustee Cates,
Yes.
Trustee Riley,
Yes.
Trustee McMahon,
Yes.
Trustee Kane,
Yes.
Trustee Flood,
Yes.
Trustee Mishu,
Yes.
motion carries.
Thank you. And the next to tab 11, establishment of the Pioneering Innovation Chair in Engineering. Again, President Farini Mundy.
And I'll go right to Associate Vice President Paquette for this.
Thank you, President Farini Mundy and Trustee Cates. Yes, similar to the last chair, this establishes the Pioneering Innovation Chair in Engineering. Similarly, it will permit the recruitment and retention of excellent faculty in engineering and further bolster MCEC. This is obviously a very exciting opportunity and will also enhance the educational experience of our students, both graduate and undergraduate, particularly at a time when MCEC is expanding. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions? I'm seeing none. Let me read the text of the proposed resolution that the Board of Trustees accepts the recommendation of the Finance, Facilities, and Technology Committee and authorizes the University of Maine system acting through the University of Maine to establish the Pioneering Innovation Chair in Engineering. Is there such a motion?
So moved.
By Trustee Mishu and second by Trustee Kane. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, Beth, could you call the roll, please?
Trustee Cates,
Yes.
Trustee Riley,
Yes.
Trustee McMahon,
Yes.
Trustee Kane,
Yes.
Trustee Flood,
Yes.
Trustee Mishu,
Yes.
motion carries.
Thank you. And next to tab 12, establishment of the Dr. Bernard Lown, hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, 42 Honors College Teaching Professorship. Again, President Farini Mundy.
That's okay. I'm good with Professor too. Thank you. I would like again to introduce Gabe.
Thank you very much, President Farini Mundy and Trustee Cates. This is a very exciting possibility for our faculty, the creation of this teaching professorship in the Honors College. This is designed to recognize excellent faculty outside of the Honors College to come into the Honors College and engage with our students through mentorship and developing innovative courses. Yes, I think this is really a tremendous opportunity to continue to enhance the reputation of the Honors College, which now has over 700 students enrolled. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions?
Roger, I have my hand up.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, Dr. Kane.
Yes, Dr. Kane.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much. I just wanted to say, I think this is really exciting. I had the privilege of being a part of the announcement of this gift a year ago with the family. Dr. Lown was my mentor for the last 25 years of his life and my pen pal really since I was about 19 years old when I met him as an undergrad at the University of Maine. You can't see it, but his picture hangs in my office. And the coin that he was honored with by the U.S. Mint, I wear as a necklace. Dr. Lown is a Nobel Peace Prize winner, but he also is from Lewiston, Maine, and invented the defibrillator, the direct current defibrillator, and was recognized as an innovator for the state by the governor and the U.S. Mint in the last 2 years, and by Robert Shetterly, Maine artist, with one of his Americans Who Tell the Truth photos. So I just wanted to take a moment of personal privilege also to say this is a really big step for the Honors College to have this kind of endowed professorship, and it was a really awesome collaboration between the dean and the family to find the right way to honor his legacy. So I love the idea of this and was a big fan of his. So thank you very much.
Thank you for that history. And I'm sorry, I kind of lost track of where we are. Is it time for the vote, Beth?
No, you need to read.
I apologize. I hadn't read the motion.
No.
That the Board of Trustees accepts the recommendation of the Finance, Facilities, and Technology Committee and authorizes the University of Maine system acting through the University of Maine to establish the Dr. Bernard Lown 42 Honors College Teaching Professorship. Is there such a motion? Made by Trustee Kane and seconded by by trustee Mishu. Any discussion? Seeing none, Beth, could you call the roll, please?
Trustee Cates,
Yes.
trustee Riley,
Yes.
trustee McMahon,
Yes.
trustee Kane,
Yes.
trustee Flood,
Yes.
trustee Mishu,
Yes.
motion carries.
Thank you. Moving on to the materials at tab 13, the athletic multi-purpose arena funding increase at the University of Maine. Again, President Farini Monday.
Thank you, trustee Cates. And we have 4 items relative to the UMaine Athletics Master Plan, and I'll do a brief introduction here and then turn to Kelly and to Jude to take up each item in turn. A reminder that we have an extraordinary award from the Harold Alfond Foundation, $170 million commitment to the University of Maine for major upgrades to the athletics facilities, and we are expected to match these funds with $38 million in gifts over the next period of time. This commitment is distributed over 6 years, and so what you're seeing in these upcoming 4 items is progress on the work, all of it at various stages. Some short-term or interim borrowing may be required to meet the short-term capital construction cash flow needs, and we would bring those items to you as appropriate as they come up. We've had very good success already in fundraising at more than 20 million coming in. So these items are all about advancing this work. And for the first, which I will introduce, I would remind you that this board in September of 22 authorized the system to expend up to 40 million to construct and make improvements to the phase 1 projects of the Harold Alfond Foundation Athletics Master Plan, and then to continue design work under that plan. That was design work for phase 2 projects. And so now we're beginning to talk, at least with the Morse Arena items, about phase 2. And we will turn it now, if it's okay with you, to Jude and to Kelly to say just a little bit more about this specific one, but I won't repeat my introduction for each of these 4.
Thank you, President Farini Monday. So as the president mentioned, we came to the Board of Trustees in September of 2022 to seek authorization for up to $40 million in funds for General Alfond Master Plan, athletics master plan related activities. Of that 40 million, we allocated 12 million to the Morse Arena design and development of that building. We come to you today seeking authorization up to $30 million for the design, the site work preparation, relocation of utilities, and early bid packages associated with this building. I'm happy to report that all early design show that this building is coming in on budget as anticipated, and we don't foresee any, at this point in time, any concerns related to budget. I'm happy to take questions along with my colleague Jude Kelly here on the call related to the scope of the project.
Thank you. Jude, did you want to say anything at this point, or?
I'll probably weigh in on the other ones a little bit more, but I'm happy to take any other questions as well.
Okay, thank you very much. So there are questions of any of them about this project? Seeing none, thank you very much. I'll read the text of the proposed resolution. That the Board of Trustees accepts the recommendation of the Finance, Facilities, and Technology Committee and authorizes the University of Maine system, acting through the University of Maine, to expend up to $30 million for the completion of design, site work preparation, relocation of existing utilities, and early bid packages for the athletic multi-purpose arena. Is there such a motion?
So moved.
Moved by trustee Mishu and seconded by trustee Kane. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, Beth, could you take the roll call?
Trustee Cates,
Yes.
trustee Riley,
Yes.
trustee McMahon,
Yes.
trustee Kane,
Yes.
trustee Flood,
Yes.
trustee Mishu,
Yes.
the motion carries.
Thank you. So the next one of these is again to tab 14 in our materials, naming of the UMaine Athletic Multi-Purpose Arena, the naming portion of this. Again, President Farini Monday.
Yes, and so within the same context, we bring to you request for authorization to name the new building the Morse Arena. And so we would like to take that to the full board in May, but we're very excited about Phil Morse's extraordinary contribution, and maybe Jude could say a word or two more about that.
Jude.
Jude.
Sorry, my mute button got stuck. So you think I'd figure that out by now? Thank you, President Freeney-Mundy and Chair Cates. Yeah, just a little bit of background. I know you're all familiar with the Morse name. The Morse family have been donors for a long time to the university. They've gifted about $15 million in total. And they were some of the first people to step up with the UMS Transforms match. They actually gifted $1 million initially to the project, then came back and have since gifted $10 million more. And they were really the first people to step in on the multi-purpose and basketball arena. So the plan would be to put their name on this building. We currently do, to your question before about naming, we currently do have their name on the field already at Alphon Stadium, and all due diligence has been checked as well.
Thank you, Jude. Questions at all about this proposal? Seeing none, let me then read the text of the proposed resolution that the Board of Trustees accepts the recommendation of the Finance, Facilities, and Technology Committee and authorizes the University of Maine system acting through the University of Maine to name the new athletic multi-purpose arena the Morse Arena. This would be a resolution to be forwarded to the consent agenda for board approval at the May 19, 2025 board meeting. Is there such a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Trustee Michaud and second by Trustee Kane. Discussion on the motion? Seeing none, Beth, could you call the roll, please?
Trustee Cates?
Yes.
Trustee Riley?
Yes.
Trustee McMahon?
Yes.
Trustee Kane?
Yes.
Trustee Flood?
Yes.
Trustee Michaud?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Next, at tab 15 in our materials. And by the way, I apologize. At the beginning of the meeting, I forgot to recognize Clyde Mitchell, one of our faculty reps to the FFT committee. Clyde, always great to have you. Thanks for being here. And I don't think your colleague is here, but if I'm missing him, I apologize. Tab 15, the athletic utility field building at the University of Maine. President Freeney-Mundy.
Again, still all part of our extraordinary expansion with the Alphon funding, and I will turn it to Jude. We're requesting your approval for a small building, 3,000 square feet.
Yeah, and thank you. And the primary purpose of this building is really to accommodate the addition and growth of track and field, which is currently ongoing. New Balance track and field, which is being built now, and New Balance soccer complex. So it's really to be able to accommodate those spaces with appropriate storage and utilization of anything else that might be within the proximity of those fields. So in addition to nice new spaces, making sure that we're keeping them tidy and have appropriate equipment nearby as well.
Thank you very much. Questions about this resolution? Seeing none, let me read the text of the proposed resolution that the Finance, Facilities, and Technology Committee approves the following resolution to be forwarded to the Board of Trustee approval at the May 19, 2025 board meeting, that the Board of Trustees accepts the recommendation of the Finance, Facilities, and Technology Committee and authorizes the University of Maine system acting through the University of Maine the construction of a new approximately 3,000 square foot athletic utility field building. Is there such a motion?
So moved.
By Trustee Michaud and seconded by Trustee Kane. Is there discussion on the motion? Seeing none, Beth, could you take the roll call, please?
Trustee Cates?
Yes.
Trustee Riley?
Yes.
Trustee McMahon?
Yes.
Trustee Kane?
Yes.
Trustee Flood?
Yes.
Trustee Michaud?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. And now, last but not least, on this group of proposals, and again, tab 16 in our materials, the UMaine Memorial Gym indoor track resurfacing project. Again, President Freeney-Mundy. Thank you.
So as we build the beautiful new facilities, we are also mindful of making sure that our existing facilities have as much renovation and deferred maintenance attention as we can. So I will again turn to Jude on this one for the resurfacing of the track.
Thank you, President Freeney-Mundy. And as the president pointed out, this is a significant deferred maintenance issue that we'll be addressing this fall if voted accordingly. But essentially, this is for the indoor New Balance field house. In addition to our varsity programs that use it, and it's beyond just track and field, this is a great center for community use from local schools. It's one of the few indoor tracks in the state and certainly in this region. So it does get a lot of use, and it has not been resurfaced since it was originally built. So this is something that should happen probably about every decade, and we're just a little bit past that at this point. So this would help more than meet that need. So thank you.
Thanks very much. Questions from the committee? Seeing none, I'll read the text of the proposed resolution. That the Finance, Facilities, and Technology Committee authorizes the University of Maine system, acting through the University of Maine, to expend up to $800,000 to replace the existing indoor track located within Memorial Gym. Is there such a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion on the motion. Seeing none, Beth, could you call the roll, please?
Trustee Cates,
Yes.
trustee Riley,
Yes.
trustee McMahon,
Yes.
trustee Kane,
Yes.
trustee Flood,
Yes.
trustee Mishu,
Yes.
motion carries.
Thank you. And again, this does not require further board approval. Am I correct? Very
Yes,
good.
correct on that.
Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to materials at tab 17. Boardman Hall modernization at the University of Maine. Again, President Freeney Mundy.
Thank you very much. And so we shift from athletics now to engineering and computing. And here we are bringing forward the latest plans relative to our overall Maine College of Engineering and Computing master plan, which was conducted during 2021, 2022. And that planning involved an identification of Boardman Hall, including the Llewellyn Edwards Wing, as a top priority for preservation and refurbishing. It's, as you all may know, it is on the northeast corner of the University Mall. It's an important piece of our overall core campus. And the idea of this renovation that we're proposing to you today is to provide more opportunity for collaboration and continue to reinforce and strengthen the identity of MCEC here on this campus, at least. Boardman Hall houses the School of Engineering Technology, the School of Computing and Information Science, and the Department of Civil and Environmental Engineering, named after Professor Boardman, who was the 7th president of the University of Maine in the late 20s and 30s. So this renovation that is being proposed is at its first stages of engaging a design firm to look at the feasibility study and continue to finalize the future programming and modernization plans for the building. And that process will begin following appropriate approvals. At the June 2025 FFT meeting, we will seek authorization to expend up to $10,040,000 for design services. That funding will come from the MCEC award from the Alfond Foundation, as well as the state debt service from 2023. So we wanted to put this before you at this time. I guess is only an information item. Beth?
I believe it is, yes.
Okay, thank you.
So thanks for the preview. Questions for the president about this project? I'm not seeing any, so, oh yes, I'm sorry, Kelly has her hand up.
Thank you, Chair Cates. I just wanted to clarify one thing. We have completed a feasibility study, so we have been in the building and we've done some early look at both design and engineering of the building to understand what the costs would be associated with this. So we do have those in hands. The next step would be to do a detailed programming and design of the building, and that's what we'll be returning for in June to seek authorization for. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. Ryan?
I was just going to mention a reminder for our newer members that if an item has a value of more than 5 million, we bring it here for an information item. And so if you didn't know, that's why this one is here, and you'll see it at a future meeting.
Ryan, you went on mute in the middle there.
Okay. I was just saying that this one will come back to you. Anything over 5 million, we preview to as an information item.
Thank you. All right, thanks for the presentation. We'll move on to the materials at our tab 18. Black Bear Academy Child Care Center expansion at the University of Maine. Again, President Freeney Mundy.
So here we're requesting authorization to spend up to $4 million to renovate existing facilities in the University Park in Old Town to increase the number of children that will be able to serve in the campus-based child care center. They'll increase that number by 41 slots, very much needed here by our faculty, staff, and students. getting us to a total of 120 slots, with at least 25% that are reserved for the dependents of community members. So these renovations would be made, as I mentioned, to various facilities at University Park in the coming months. And I just wanted to indicate that the funding sources do come from a CDS secured through the efforts of Senator Collins, the funding for $4 million that was made available for community project funding grants in 2024. And it won't increase our square footage, it's renovation. Kelly may wish to say more about this.
The only thing I'll add is a thank you to our Faculty Senate President, Amanda Clemmer, who was integral in helping us draft this CDS proposal, and that we have 75 children currently on our existing wait list. So even with this expanded capacity, we won't be able to fully serve the needs of both our students, faculty, staff, and community members. So anticipate this greatly helping.
Thank you very much. Questions? Kelly, do we know, is it the CDS funding is in hand?
It is not in hand. It has been approved, and we would only move forward if the funds were available for drawdown against the capital expenditures.
Thank you. Trustee Michoud.
Yeah, Kelly, Madam President, is this CDS funded from the HUD portion of it? And if so, how do you have to comply with the NEPA process? So how soon will that occur?
So again, everything's a little bit on hold. It is HUD, Trustee Michaud, and so we will, of course, comply with whatever is required. But that will all begin when the funds are in hand and we can draw them down. And so we'll certainly keep everybody informed if there's any change or any different course we need to take.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Trustee. Other questions or comments about this? Seeing none, then let me read the text of the proposed resolution. That the Finance, Facilities, and Technology Committee approves the following resolution to be forwarded to the Board of Trustees for approval at the May 19, 2025 board meeting. That the Board of Trustees accepts the recommendation of the Finance, Facilities, and Technology Committee and authorizes the University of Maine, acting through the University of Maine, to expend up to $4 million for renovations of existing facilities located at University Park in Old Town. Is there such a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Trustee Michoud and seconded by Trustee Kane. Is there discussion on the motion? Seeing none, Beth, could you call the roll, please?
Trustee Cates?
Yes.
Trustee Riley?
Yes.
Trustee McMahon?
Yes.
Trustee Kane?
Yes.
Trustee Flood?
Yes.
Trustee Michoud?
Yes.
That motion carries.
Thank you. Next on our agenda is a discussion of the UMaine Forest Biomaterials Innovation Center. Again, welcome back, President Farini Mundy.
Thanks. So the Forest Biomaterials Innovation Center, FBIC, is a part of the operation here at the university connected to the Process Development Center that is very focused on working with external clients to do early testing and prototyping and feasibility of various processes in the basic pulp and paper industries. And so what we are requesting is your authorization for, wait a minute, right notes here, your authorization for a, this is an information item. So what we're requesting here is the opportunity to give you information. In any case, it's about our intention to engage a firm to design and construct a new facility in association with FBIC through a competitive process later this spring. And then we would be coming back to you as appropriate for the further steps in that activity. Let me tell you a little about what the center would do. That's where I was trying to get. So it's dollars are coming in a NIST CDS, 7.4 million. And that is not in hand yet, but we have done some risk analysis on that and we're looking confident. We are confident about it. This new facility, which will be a construction of a 7,200 square foot standalone research building in proximity to the PDC, the Process Development Center, and Jeunesse Hall on the UMaine campus. And this is to enable us to accommodate new equipment that can allow more innovative processing of forest fiber at demonstration scale, where we have a very long history of partnering with industry from around the country, certainly from the state, to do these kinds of demonstrations and tests at demonstration scale. And so we are eager to get started on this, and we are very optimistic about this NISP funding at this time.
Thank you. Questions about this project of the president? Seeing none, thank you very much. And we'll move on then to tab 20, the Gordian FY24 analysis, which we do every year. Gretchen, glad to have you with us.
Thank you. And we're ahead of schedule, so our partners from Gordian are yet to join us. We've reached out to them to see if they can join earlier. They indicated that they could join us at 11, and we're seeing if they can join even sooner.
Okay.
So I apologize, we have a gap.
We can skip over it and come back.
Okay.
So why don't we do that? So next on the agenda then would be something we do every meeting, is to keep track of our adherence to the strategic plan. And in tab 21, there are materials about a couple of the areas assigned to us. Ryan?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The strategic planning tracking update is in your materials, tab 21. Just a couple of quick updates. We thought we were going to be a little short on time, so we truncated this update. But two updates for you on this one. You recall, no surprise, this committee has several initiatives related to budget, including the very first one, which is that we'll submit balanced budgets and submit them in a timely manner and so on. So you saw that today. We've finalized our initial drafts of the FY26 budget. We presented to you earlier today. We'll be back in front of you in May. So all of the steps in the budget process are moving along. If I go a little further down in the spreadsheet, we get into facilities and investments in that space, and would draw your attention on goal 3.2, which is identifying efficiencies in infrastructure and optimizing upkeep and so on. And our deliverable, that one is the agenda item that we're going to be talking about next, which is the Gordian presentation, where we assess all of that, present that information to you, act on that. So I think the agenda today is super timely because it's checking several boxes on our tracking initiatives, and fairly straightforward update, but happy to answer any questions you might have, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Ryan. Questions about these specific items that are assigned to us as part of the strategic plan? Emily, anything you want to add here? No?
No, this is very straightforward. I mean, it's a great tracking system that they have. I think it's great.
Thank you. All right, so we're gonna I guess Gordy is going to be here at 11. We are ahead of schedule. Any reason we can't go into executive session now to deal with those items and then come back for them, unless they're already here, Gretchen?
They are here.
Well, they're here. Well, let's do it then.
Awesome. Well, thank you, everyone. As part of our continued commitment to strategic resource management and physical asset stewardship, I'm pleased to welcome Victoria Basile and Emma Viles from Gordian, as well as Nate Harris, our Executive Director for Capital Planning and Project Management. So they will be reviewing the facilities benchmarking and analysis for the University of Maine system. This annual report provides essential insight into the condition, utilization, and operational performance of our system-wide facilities. So with that, I will hand it over to them to present. Thank you, everyone.
Quick check before I start presenting. Everyone can see the screen. Amazing. Off to a great start. Well, thank you all really for having us today. We really appreciate the opportunity to share the FY24 highlights of our analysis. So every year, Gordian collects a tremendous amount of the data and links it to one of the key areas listed on the screen. This allows us to understand the relationship between the facilities portfolio, capital investment, and operations at each of the campuses. So annual stewardship, all the way over to the left-hand side, are the reoccurring dollars to keep up with the life cycles as they're coming due. Each of the buildings on each of the campuses are made up of building components. If we were to replace those assets as the life cycles come due, these would be the reoccurring dollars needed to keep up with that. However, most of the Gordian database doesn't have access to those dollars to be able to keep up with the needs as they come due, which then defers to a backlog of needs. So this is referred to as asset reinvestment, which is the accumulation of need as well as additional modernization needs on campus. So these would be the one-time dollars that would then draw down against those needs. Operational effectiveness in the green looks at the dollar per gross square foot for the operating budget, staffing and supervision ratios, as well as the cost and consumption for utilities. Finally, all the way to the right-hand side is service, an area of our analysis that takes a deeper dive into the capabilities of the work order system, as well as the software available for each of the campuses. When we move in to look at the core observations for this year, so we've noted a shift over the past few years to online teaching, which is affecting building use. Continued record capital investments impact campus age profiles and net asset value. So a slight drop was noted since the FY23 investment. However, FY24 is still one of the 3 highest spending years throughout the analysis. Our focus should really remain on divesting high need, low use buildings. And we should continue to look at the different functional portfolios by campus and by the function to support the missions of the campuses that have the greatest impacts. So diving into the analysis, we're going to look at the student population. So here we are looking at enrollment headcount and in-person student FTEs. Both of these will be indexed to fiscal year 16. So enrollment headcount is that blue line that we can see on the screen. This has seen a steady decrease since FY19 and an overall 17% decrease since FY16. When we switch gears to look at solely the in-person FTEs, that will be that orange line on the screen, we can see a drop of 48% since FY16, with a drop in 23 and really plateauing out in 24. I do want to touch on a brief reminder. So last year, we started looking at only the in-person FTEs. Since the pandemic, there has been a shift in the in-person versus remote learning. So instead of looking solely at the enrollment headcount, we've shifted that methodology to the in-person learning only, and we've continued that approach for this year as well. This will be beneficial when we dive into the density factor on the next slide, so we can really pinpoint the on-campus use of our buildings. So density factor is a measure of how busy each campus is in relation to the physical space across the UMaine system. Density is connected to not only the complexities of day-to-day operations, but the more strategic campus utilization opportunities. So your density is calculated by taking the full-time equivalents of students, faculty, and staff, and dividing that by the total gross square feet of the space. This is looking at the overall busyness of campus. A higher density or busier campus ultimately impacts the replacement of life cycles, the amount of staff that we will need, and the amount of consumables needed to maintain the buildings. Putting the density on a bell curve across the database, so this highlights the differences between the individual campuses on the left-hand side within the UMaine system and the other 2 peers that we utilized for this presentation, which will be the higher ed database average and then the higher ed public school average. When we dive into the historical trending for our density factor, so this chart is looking at the UMaine system density over time, once again in users per 100,000 gross square feet. We can see the impact of the pandemic over the past few years, really again where we see online learning beginning to impact some of the teaching. In FY24, as a system, we see 178 users per 100,000 gross square feet. So campuses are more space rich compared to that blue horizontal, the higher ed public school average line up at the top of the chart, which represents that higher ed average across the Gordian database, meaning that the UMaine system is less busy across the public school database. Once again, I want to highlight that methodology shift over the past few years. We've taken the in-person FTEs as opposed to those enrollment numbers. While we do have a lower density factor than the database, the age of our space will also play a key part in our metrics. So moving into the age of our buildings. So we look at the age of the system in 2 lenses: construction age, so when those buildings were constructed, and then renovation age, when a building has reset the clock on its life due to major renovation. Here we're looking at the renovation age of all of the system as a percent of gross square feet broken down between the 4 age categories listed to the right-hand side. As a high overview, each age bucket comes with varying operational and capital risks. So younger spaces require capital investment or less capital investment, as well as daily service. The focus for these spaces under the age of 25 will really be on preventive maintenance and keeping the systems running well. As buildings then age over the age of 25 years old, their assets start to reach the end of their useful life cycle that will require replacement driving those capital needs. As a whole, the UMaine system has 71% of space over the age of 25 years old threshold, despite the renovations that have taken place across the campuses. So as buildings age over 25, they have a higher risk of failure if those replacements aren't being addressed in a timely manner. These are typically the buildings where campuses are feeling high financial pressure to complete renovations as these systems are past due. When we break this out compared to the peers, so despite the work and renovations across the main system, peers in the gray bars have been able to achieve a younger age profile. So again, it's important to point out that 54% of our spaces are over the age of 50 years old, meaning that over half of the spaces across the main system have systems that are well past their useful life cycles. When we break out those blue bars to show the residence halls are broken out in red. We see that almost 20% of the over 50 spaces are made up of residence halls. So with almost 70% of the residence halls across the system falling into the highest risk age category, again, meaning that a majority of their systems are past due, which then leads to difficulties maintaining those spaces, trying to strategically choose projects and attract students. With a small fraction falling under the age of 10 years old, with Portland Commons coming online at Southern Main, accounting for a portion of that red bar that we see all the way over to the left-hand side. Diving into our spaces over 50 historically. So looking solely at the percent of our space over the age of 50 years old, we do see a 1% drop from 23 to 24. When we project out, if the UMaine system were to do something unusual, like not invest into existing spaces and conduct large-scale renovations, our highest risk spaces would account for 57% of the age profile in the next 5 years. This is really important to consider as the capital cost for life cycles start to increase when a building surpasses the age of 25 years old due to major building systems reaching the end of their useful life cycles. These are typically going to be HVAC systems and roofs. Due to the compounding of needs, these spaces are driving financial pressures on the capital investment side. So diving into the capital, looking at the total millions of dollars invested across the UMaine system, broken out by existing space in the gray, this will be spending into the buildings that are already existing on campus, infrastructure in the green, which is the investment into the utility distribution or grounds work, new construction in the yellow, which entails spending on projects that add buildings to campus, including acquisitions, and non-facilities in the blue. These will be projects that go towards non-asset enhancing work, such as studies or design fees. The spending is broken out by the expenditures by fiscal year. So from FY07 to FY24, the average investment totals $56.5 million. This is largely driven up by the investments over the last 3 years that were really focused on new space investments into the campuses, with some of the largest new space spending taking place at Southern Main for the Center of the Arts, Portland Res Hall and McGoldrick, and then the UMaine for the engineering building. While new space is key to supporting programmatic changes, these new spaces can be difficult to maintain from a facilities perspective and require more resources on a daily basis to operate the facilities. So this calls for a balance of all types of investments. New space is important to grow each of the institutions, but it is the investment into the existing spaces that really helps to alleviate the need in existing buildings across the system. When we focus and dive more into the existing space, so the gray portion of the bars, so diving into that existing space investment, normalized by dollar per gross square foot basis, the UMaine system on the left-hand side is investing less than peers over the last 18 years on average. When we focus on FY23 and FY24, The UMaine system is not only above the historical averages, but also above peers, which is great to see. So this is a trend that we really want to celebrate and continue to see as we keep in mind that 71% of our space within the system is above 25 years old and is considered to be high risk. If we were able to continue these large-scale capital infusions into existing spaces in a strategic manner, ideally focusing on higher return on investment items such as envelope and building systems, we will then be able to lower the overall risk of the spaces within the system. When we view our existing space investment historically compared to our annual investment target, so buildings and their components are predictable in nature, and based on this, we can map out what it takes to keep up with them as systems come due for replacement. So the purpose of this slide is to identify a target investment level for the UMaine system based on physical characteristics of all the included buildings. If an institution is able to invest at or above the annual investment target on average over time, then that is a level of investment that will allow the institution to keep up with needs of its buildings and prevent the accumulation of deferred maintenance need. This is a budgeting model. So in some years, the actual needs coming due will be higher and in some years lower, but being able to invest at or above this level consistently over time is a strategic starting point for evaluating the needed funding. The annual investment target, so that dotted blue line, is the recommended target level to invest at annually in order to prevent deferral of need and growth of backlog. In FY24, this target is $54.5 million for the UMaine system. When funding does fall consistently short of that annual investment target, the backlog will grow. So both that annual investment target and the life cycle needs target that we'll see on the next slide will change over time. This can be due to inflation, which we've seen over the last few years, as well as any additional spaces coming online or removing spaces. Here we can see FY24 is another banner year of existing space investment for the UMaine system. So the bars for 23 and 24 are getting closer to the dotted lines. However, historically falling short to the annual investment target will lead to an increased growth in the backlog and the risk of campus. So incorporating the UMaine system capital plan for the next 5 years, so we can see those as the grayed out portions of the bars towards the right-hand side of the slide. So projecting those out, we can compare to the plan to the increasing capital targets. So this plan does show the UMaine system exceeding both of those targets. So not only that annual investment target that we saw on the last slide, but also that life cycle need target. As long as the plan is implemented as we have projected it out, we would see a decrease in backlog over the coming years. So looking at how the UMaine system compares to peers. So looking at the percent of target funded, each institution that we work with, given their building attributes, has a set target. So this is looking at the percent of those peers' ability to fund to their individual targets. On average, the Maine system has funded 59% compared to the public higher ed database average of 69% and the Gordian higher ed database average of 78%. Historically, we are funding the lowest amount compared to both of those groups. In FY23 and FY24, we can see that our investment compared to targets on an upward trend and are meeting the public higher ed database average. When we switch gears and look into a case study at UMPI, so here we're looking at how the future divestment of the Holton Center and Skyway dorm buildings will affect not only the overall age profile breakdown of campus, but the future funding to target. So on the left-hand side, we could see that by FY26, we will start to see that with the reduction of around 24,000 gross square feet, that we'll actually start to see a 1% in the under 10 age category that right here on this screen. So this is actually going to be the greenhouse that has been under the age of 10 for the last few years. However, just with the overall needs, that's such a small percent of the age profile, it was not showing on the bars. So that as the result of removing those, when we look at the right-hand side of the screen, so in terms of investment with a divestment of spaces, lowering the targets in FY25, along with the projected spending, UMPI is once again expected to exceed the annual investment target, as well as the life cycle target, thus reducing the amount of backlog on campus while adding to the net asset value. So with this relationship of deferring need, we can look into the reinvestment need. So when we look at the target over time and the investment falling short, this then leads to backlog increasing. So this chart is looking at asset reinvestment in total dollars. And then on the right-hand side, we're looking at it in terms of dollars per gross square feet compared to peers. So this is including the needs that are already past due and then coming due over the next 10 years. So the UMaine system reinvestment need has reached $1.8 billion. When normalized on a dollar per gross square foot basis, our need is around $208 per gross square feet, while the public higher ed is at $150. And when we look at the overall database, we see an average of $144. So given our historical gap to the target, the UMaine system does have a higher dollar per gross square feet need compared to our peers. When we utilize this need to calculate the NAV across the system, so as a quick reminder, the NAV is broken down into the 4 risk levels or stages listed on the left-hand side. So as the backlog grows, the overall NAV will then be decreasing. I do want to note, so for the first time, we are looking solely at the current backlog NAV by campus. So the goal here is to identify the most pressing needs that are occurring on campuses and show the campuses as their buildings stand today, solely in terms of their backlog level compared to the replacement value. So this is a little bit different than we've historically seen, and we'll see the historical methodology on the next slide. So when the majority of campuses are falling into the capital upkeep and repair and maintain stage, again, solely looking at that backlog level of net asset value for that current need. When we do look at NAV for the system historically, this will then be our typical view, including the backlog, but also the next 10 years. So as backlog has been growing over time, the UMaine system, we are seeing the NAV decreasing over time as a result. We do want to highlight that due to the yet another banner year of existing space investment across the system, the rate of decline for the NAV has been slowing over the past few years, and this year has held constant to FY23. Highlighting a case study at UMaine Farmington. So the ESCO projects that have spanned the last few years have led to UMF not only reaching the annual investment target, but exceeding the life cycle need target by investing specifically into some of the major mechanical systems. As a result, we see the FY24 net asset value increase to 60% on the right-hand side of this screen, which is great to see. Looking at the NAV by type of space for the system. So here we're applying the net asset value to each function across the system, along with the percent of space for the function in the gray bar. So the percent of the gross square feet for each of those functions. It is important to know that this is in terms of, again, the backlog only net asset values. So those net asset values for the needs that are solely past due. Highlighting academic buildings and residence halls because those make up just under 70% of the system's gross square feet. Both fall into the repair and maintain stage where the buildings are starting to show their age, again, solely in terms of backlog where those buildings are standing today. When we look and see this based off of total need, so we spoke about density being one strategy to determining the amount of space needed within the system. Another tool is going to be the net asset value metrics. Talking about residence halls in the beginning of this conversation, these contain some of the oldest spaces across the system, and they make up 27% of the gross square feet. About 20% is over the age of 50 years old when we are looking in the space section of our analysis, while residence halls have an average net asset value of 58%. So this can really be utilized to identify what portfolios as a system you want to highlight to shift the need through investments and really reset those buildings. Moving into operational effectiveness. So here we're breaking down the people and non-utility expenses from FY10 and then FY24 across the main system, the public school average, and then the higher ed database average. The inflation has been a major talking point over the last 3 years, and we've inflated the FY10 non-utility expenses and people costs to the FY24 dollars, meaning that we're showing the FY10 operating actuals in terms of if they were being spent in 2024 with our current inflation levels. When you look at the FY24 numbers compared to the public and database higher ed averages, the UMaine system has a higher dollar per gross square foot than those peer groups. Keeping the inflation factors in mind, despite the increase we've seen across all these groups, they have less buying power due to the increased inflation that we've been facing over the past few years. This is really then creating challenges across the board for the facilities departments to really maintain those existing buildings. When we switch gears slightly to look at a case study for UMF for utility expenses. So at UMF, there has been a lot of work in terms of updating the systems and the plan. So you can see the impacts through the operating dollars when we look at the utility actuals since FY08, which have then decreased 42% in FY24 compared to FY08. The major driver really behind the stellar decrease is going to be those plant investments. So since UMF switched from oil burning to wood burning after fiscal year 15, this has then saved UMF approximately $800,000 annually on purchased fossil. Looking at another case study for this time planned maintenance spending at UMFK. So on the left-hand graph, we can see that over the analysis, space at UMFK has started to move towards highest risk, with 60% of the campus over the age of 25 years old in FY24. While 40% of space is under the age of 25 years old, it is imperative to grow the preventive maintenance spending to maintain the younger buildings, while the limited available capital dollars are then needed towards those major infusions, like we know Fox Auditorium, which will be coming up and is expected to take place in FY26. When we look at preventive maintenance, normalized on a dollar per gross square foot basis on the right-hand side of the screen, in FY24, UMFK's PM spending has exceeded our historical investments, which can be attributed to the spike in the in-house PM spending. Again, an aging campus, PM spending is going to be necessary to maintain those younger spaces so that we can then focus our capital dollars on older, higher risk spaces. Finally, when we'll move into a maintenance case study at Southern Maine. So this is going to be highlighting the maintenance trade staffing at only Southern Maine. So the left graph is looking at the gross square feet per FTE for maintenance coverage compared to peers. And then on the right-hand axis, we see the dollar per gross square foot of that asset reinvestment need. As we see campuses with higher deferred maintenance, we do typically see they are unable to cover large amounts of space without feeling the strain. When we bring in this right chart, so in FY20, USM had 27 maintenance FTEs, and over the last 5 years, this has then dropped down to 21. This then impacts the coverage from 79,000 gross square feet to 110,000 gross square feet. Again, as a campus has a higher backlog and aging buildings, we would hope to see an opposite trend where the coverage ratios are steady, if not decreasing, to give the maintenance staff the ability to take care of those systems that are coming due and need to be addressed. I know we've just covered quite a bit of information over a short number of slides. So when we wrap this all up into a few concluding comments, so on average, $55 to $88 million annually will start to slow the aging process and start to address the deferred maintenance. It's important to continue to invest strategically into facilities that are key to the institutional mission and focus on the function of the space to then drive down the need on the campuses and increase the net asset value. Significant space reductions are required to reverse the aging and decrease the deferred maintenance, and reducing those spaces will also improve the building usage on each of the campuses. Finally, this year we've brought in the UMaine system is experiencing staffing shortages and talent loss due to wage discrepancy. So referencing Gordian's 2024 State of Facilities report, across the nation, it's expected that 40% of the current facilities workers are projected to retire by 2030, while hiring efforts are hindered by the local wage gaps. I do want to thank you all for your time today. We really appreciate the opportunity every year to have this conversation with you all and bring the highlights up to you all.
Victoria, thank you very much. I think I asked you this last year, but where are you calling in? Where are you zooming in from?
So I'm actually calling in from the shoreline of Connecticut, so not too far away.
Great. Well, welcome again.
Thank you.
Questions? So let me just speak for myself. I am completely overwhelmed by this information. There is so much And you did a great job of presenting it because you had a lot to present in a short period of time. But I feel like I am able to accept your concluding comments, not able to take all that much in such a short presentation. And I'm interested, maybe after hearing from others, to maybe we could set up a maybe even an optional, more extended period of time to look at these issues and to talk with Gordian, because if I were given a test on what we just received, I would get an F. So I just want to raise that issue to see if others might be interested in a more extended presentation on an optional basis. Chair Riley?
Yeah, I think that would be very useful. It is a lot of information. But I was curious, the space reduction issue, obviously the density chart just jumps out at us. We've talked a lot about demolition. In your work, have you seen any creative solutions to reducing space in systems like ours?
So I think the Humane System does a really good job of the no net new space, using that to really guide this. You all also do use the net asset values, which is also very, very beneficial. It's funny that you asked that, especially because the Humane System is usually the one that I point some of my other clients to for doing a stellar job of, again, utilizing the no net new space or the net asset values. As far as creativity, it is hard, and especially demolition costs. It's not cheap to demolish a building. A lot of the times, our other members will bring us in to then make the case based off of the overall cost analysis. So kind of a small assessment, similar to what we did for the Humane Orno, for the housing. So looking at the overall building, showing the needs, and then either making the case for a renovation or a demolition. In terms of creativity, I know some of my other institutions will go towards the route of kind of like the Skyway res halls of just trying to offload the space by selling it out, as opposed to having to demolish it themselves. I can reach out to some of the other systems that we work with. I know the UMass system would be somebody that I can talk to about. I worked on a few of their projects a few years ago, so I can see if I can get back to you all on that.
Thank you. Yes, David.
I understand that Gordian also looks at the main community college system, and it would be useful to have a comparison in here with our system versus a community college system, because my perception is that their facilities are a lot newer, a lot less maintenance intensive. But for us to be able to bring that fact forward when we're looking for funding, I think will be very useful information to have.
Definitely. I'll reach out to my colleague who manages the main community college system. I think that they could even benefit from a line in their final presentation or their board presentation as well for kind of our comparisons. So I can see if we can add anything as simple as an average line for some of our slides or a bar in that comparison as well.
Thanks. Trustee Flood.
Thank you. I don't have a question so much, Chair Cates, but I guess to me the key learning from this today was the maintenance staffing as a central issue that kind of jumped out at me, and I think I agree with your comment about developing this further in a further more intensive discussion. But that was an area that I just have to say I've been ignorant about that item, and I appreciate it being brought at least to my attention. Thanks.
Definitely. Sadly, this is an issue that we've seen across all of our members. Definitely trying to retain, especially trained personnel, is going to be a struggle. So definitely it is good to bring to these forums as well.
Also, I'm not sure you're aware of it, but at the board's urging, the system has done an excellent job of starting to talk about more of a nuanced demolition plan. And Ryan and his crew have been working hard on that. We need to come back to this committee to revisit that. He's presented us a number of different options which we might want to pursue to step up the pace of demolition. So we will revisit that. Just two very quick questions, if I could. One, you consistently refer to our peers. Is that all other public universities, or is it some other group?
Yeah, so definitely, the public, there's two peers that we refer to and that we've historically compared to against. So it's going to be the public higher ed database average. So all the public higher ed schools within Gordian's database. And then we have one for Gordian's entire database. So the public higher ed database average also includes, more accurate peers such as like the Mass system, that would be kind of a more applicable peer, along with all the other, institutions such as University of New Hampshire, Iowa, University of New Mexico, University of Washington. I think those would be kind of bigger applicable peers.
Thanks. And then Barbara, just 1 second. So the other thing in talking about density, I still remain a bit confused by the difference between full-time equivalents and number of credit hours in terms of mentioning, in terms of measuring the density. How many credit hours are being delivered in person on campus as opposed to full-time equivalents of students? Are those, how different are those two in your experience, or is that something you really haven't looked at?
So typically what we'll do is we'll partner up with our institution that we're working with and see how many hours or credit hours a student would need to have to be considered full-time. Usually I think that's around, I would say probably 12-ish. And so then that's where we would then take that conclusion. We do have a centralized, Gretchen and Nate are really fantastic about being able to provide us with that information for all the institutions so that we can make sure that the reporting is accurate across the UMaine system.
Right, but the full-time equivalent, that doesn't tell you anything necessarily about whether they're taking courses online as opposed to in person, does it, or not?
So we're solely looking at the in-person FTEs. So
Sure.
if an individual is tagged as having online, then we wouldn't be counting them.
Thank you.
Yeah, definitely.
Thanks very much. Yes, Trustee Alexander.
Not really a question for the presenters, but what is this no net increased use issue that was mentioned here? I don't see presentations of investments by our individual systems that reference this report or discuss how there is a relationship between what's going on in terms of investment and maintenance and demolition in proposals for new buildings, new dorms, or expanded programs. So I just don't understand how this actually gets into the decision-making process.
Can I mention, Mr. Chair, at least the no net space one, because that has some history to it. So that came out of when the trustees put together their original group to look at facility space reorganization back maybe 12 years ago, 13 years ago. One of the very first policies they put in place was if a university was expanding its space and literally even by a foot, they wanted the campus to have to come forward and make that case, even if it was something that traditionally might not have come to the board or the threshold was lower. If you're increasing your space, you need to come and seek authorization. And that was a way that I think the board felt it could get its arms around this ever increasing space issue, which was let's stop it, then we'll analyze it. And that was the policy they put in place at that time. And we've continued to have it in place since then. I think the only exception the board has made was several years ago, working with the chancellor and President Farini Mundy. I think we made an exception around research space or engineering space that it didn't require the same kind of offset, but it had to be a special circumstance. But that's how we ended up with that policy. Hopefully that was responsive to your question.
Thank you. Gretchen?
Can I just follow up? I
Yeah,
don't
please.
recall any discussion of that issue in any proposal I've seen since I've been on the board. Let me be clear. So if it's a good policy, I'm all for it, but I don't see it in
comes up
proposals that come to me. So.
I think I can speak to that. If you look at the agenda sheet templates that we have, item F highlights any changes in square footage. and any ongoing operating costs as a result of that square footage. So part of our review process before items come forward for the board, we actually have conversations with the campuses as well. So if they are increasing square footage, we ask them how they're going to offset it and discuss that with the board items.
Thank you, Gretchen. Other questions or comments about this boarding presentation? The only other thing I wanted to say was I did have an opportunity to go to the Appropriations Committee on the $100 million bond issue request that we have, and the extent to which people like Ryan and Gretchen are bringing real analytical tools to our understanding about our space needs and our space ages and demolition ideas and what needs to be renovated and what doesn't, and are we keeping up or we're not keeping up. That kind of analytical analysis is not lost on the legislature. They are very appreciative of that, very, very impressed with that, and it sets us in good stead with at least many of the legislators. The fact that this is much more an analytical analysis and discussion and not just how we're feeling about things. Trustee Worth.
Yeah, thank you. Similar to Roger, I heard it all but understood half. So Victoria, I'm looking for clarification on its slides 23 and 24. I thought were very interesting. The capital plan performance against, your annual targets. What is the difference between, so I'm seeing, slide 23 is up to, fiscal year 24, and then slide 24 has, 25 to 30. And obviously those lighter gray bars are significantly higher than where the current blue bars are. Is that based on current funding projections internally within the system, spending projections, where you would hope us to be? What was that decision based on?
Yeah, definitely. That's a great question. So we work alongside Nate and Gretchen throughout the year. We have monthly checkpoints with them. And so the two of them combined, we're able to send over that projected funding for the next 5 years. So what we do on our end is we then go through, similar to what we would do when we receive any capital data, is we take out any new space spending, any of that non-facilities that we talked about a few slides before that. And then so those grayed out bars are more so of those existing spending dollars that are projected out from the University of Maine system. So that data is directly driven by the University of Maine system, and then we're able to then project it out with our 2 targets that you saw compared to those.
Thank you.
Yeah, definitely.
Thanks. Other questions? Seeing none, well, thank you very much for that.
Mr. Chair.
Clyde Mitchell.
Oh, I'm sorry, Clyde, I didn't see you. Please go ahead.
Hi, Victoria. Victoria, I had a question. My campus has a very high proportion of wood frame buildings. Does that differ in terms of age and maintenance, I would imagine, from concrete buildings? And would that be a higher priority for demolition or kind of divesting from those?
So it kind of depends on, so this is going to be a high level view. It's going to be a 30,000-foot view. Even when we're looking at our prediction, that is still a high level view. In terms of the main driver there would be if all of those buildings, say, were built in, we do different eras. So if it was in the post-war and modern era, more of those like quick flash, lower quality construction materials, those buildings are typically where we would say we would need to start seeing if we can divest from those or start making those appropriate renovations. So this analysis isn't overly looking at the life cycles versus wood frame versus like a typical concrete building exterior shell. I will say with my experience with other institutions, those are the wood frames are a little bit easier to renovate on as opposed to those harder concrete structures that you would then have to drill through. But again, yeah, this is more of a 30,000-foot view, but that is a very good question of what to do versus the different types of construction materials.
Thank you, Victoria. And sorry, I hope you don't mind. I just wanted to follow up with one more question. Obviously, on campuses, people don't like to move. They kind of get very attached to their spaces. Do each of the campuses kind of have benchmarks on, where they should be heading to in terms of density to kind of help drive that consolidation process?
Not necessarily campus by campus. We do have on that density slide some interim goals. We were talking this year about potentially changing those goals slightly. The main driver, I think, around, and to your point, that is very true. Change is sometimes hard, especially at universities and life itself. But so a lot of the individual campuses will see their density factors and then also see their, since that average line, that's 178 users per 100,000 gross square feet is the overall average. Everyone is quite in line with that. And so that's really definitely then leads to us suggesting more of looking at any lower net asset value buildings or any buildings that aren't necessarily key to the campus mission, divesting those spaces. So it's not necessarily any goals on any of those campuses, but as always, we really suggest by, that the slide that we were just talking about, that kind of chasing the moving target. The only way to lower that dotted blue line to the bar is by divesting spaces and removing that need.
Thank you, Victoria. Thank you for all the work that you do for us.
Yeah, definitely. No, it's a pleasure.
Thank you. Other questions? I'm seeing none. Thank you very much for that presentation. I think that concludes our agenda, except for our closing executive session, unless I've missed something. I wanted to thank everybody for your attention and in your throughout this long meeting. We'll go briefly into executive session, and when we come back, we will not be doing any further business. So thank you very much, and I know we're all really looking forward to May 10th, when I guess most of the graduations are, and we can really viscerally understand why we're all involved in this process, because it's the happiest day of the year for all of us, I'm sure.
Thank you all for your time.
Thank you. So let me solicit a motion for the Finance, Facilities, and Technology Committee of the Board of Trustees to go into executive session under the provision of 1 MRSA Section 4056C to discuss the condition, acquisition, or disposition of real property or economic development if premature disclosure of the information would prejudice the competitive or bargaining position of the University Main System. Is there such a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Trustee Michoud and seconded by Trustee Kane. Beth, could you call the roll, please?
Trustee Cates,
Yes.
Trustee Riley,
Yes.
Trustee McMahon,
Yes.
Trustee Kane,
Yes.
Trustee Flood,
Yes.
Trustee Michoud.
Yes.
I'll move you into executive session.
Thank you. And again, thank you all.